All right. We can begin.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the City of Lincoln's regular meeting of the City Council. Tonight's meeting will be televised and available on cable channel 18 and via Zoom. This evening's invocation will be given by Stephen Hay from the Salt Mine. Once the invocation has concluded, Mayor Andreatta will call the meeting to order.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invite to do today's invocation. I'm struck by this thought that I had, and if I could just take a moment today of, if you're a person of faith, you believe that all good comes through God. It's all ordained by Him. As I was walking through the city that we enjoy, I thought, how much of that good has the Lord brought through a meeting just like this, month after month after month? It's not exactly my cup of tea, but I think I have a little bit more of appreciation for it, being that He's using you guys this evening, even in matters higher, mundane, to bring about that good for our city. So, if you guys would join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your hand of goodness that you've placed on this city. And we ask, Father, that you continue to do that even tonight, being with us as you bring about your good. We thank you, Father, that we get to enjoy that good, that you see to the thriving of this community. We thank you, Father, that we are in your thoughts and that you're here with us today. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. All right. It is 6:02. Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to the City of Lincoln 2025 regular meeting, City Council, Lincoln Redevelopment Successor Agency, Lincoln Public Financing Authority, September 23rd, 2025. And roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Reedy.
Here.
Councilmember Pearl.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Eklund, absent. And excused, Mayor Andreatta.
Here, yes, Councilmember Eklund is taking care of family matters out of state, and so we wish her well and send prayers for her grandmother and their family. So, all right, and our esteemed treasurer is going to lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands. Thank you for that. Right. Item 4, agenda modifications. Are there any changes that the council would like to make or staff? Okay, we don't have any presentations tonight. So we're going to move right into public comment on non-agenda items within the subject matter of the jurisdiction of the council. So all speakers' time will be limited to 3 minutes unless extended by the mayor. All comments or questions should be addressed to the mayor, and in most cases, the city council is prohibited from discussing or taking action on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, but may engage in brief discussion, provide direction to city staff, or schedule items for future meetings. I only have one card so far, and that is Mr. Stan Nader.
And council, my name is Stan Nader. I live in the 12 Bridges area. I would like to publicly thank Sean for the time that he gave to me last Tuesday. We covered a wide range of topics from past history of the city to current activities within the city and current potential opportunities to expand services within the city. My wife keeps a watchful eye on Facebook. Recently, she observed a post from a person complaining that her child was being shipped from a Lincoln area elementary school to Sheridan because the local schools have no room for portables, and Sheridan has room for portables. My wife observed another post from a parent living in 12 Bridges area complaining that the school district was proposing to shrink the 12 Bridges High School district area, resulting in her student being sent to the Lincoln High School. She stated she moved to 12 Bridges area so her student could attend the 12 Bridges High School. It is hard to believe that within 4 short years that the 12 Bridges High School has maxed out their capacity for students. The district has indicated there's no room for portables at that campus. I think this should send red lights flashing to the city that they should slow the roll of new development until the school district can address this situation with the development community. I'm well aware that the city is not directly involved in seeing that new school facilities are constructed, but the city does approve new development projects and certainly should make sure this matter is properly addressed. On another matter, I'm disappointed with the new city's website in that the search option at the top of the previous homepage was removed by the web designer. After looking through the website, I could only find a listing titled Records Search under the Our Government tab. The only thing there was a form to submit to the city, and the city has 10 days to respond. This does not give citizens information they wish to obtain in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nader. Appreciate that. Is there anybody else in the room wishing to make a public comment on a non-agenda item? Mr. Chapman, and then I hope we have 2 people who raise their hand on Zoom. Is there? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Chapman. You can go first.
Madam Mayor, council members, city staff, Byron Chapman, 12 Bridges area. This evening, I'm just passing out to the council, I think there's 5 pages, but there's only bullet points on there, and I'm just going to cover those so that those listening will understand what it is I'm covering. It has to do with the ADA evaluation from the city of Lincoln. This is out of the evaluation transition plan of 2018. It starts out by introduction. We, the city of Lincoln, have strived not only to comply with, and I'll just drop down a couple of lines to get to the meat of it, but we also make every attempt to ensure that the spirit of these historical benchmark pieces of legislation and adopt into the everyday business modes and activities. Citizens, including disabled individuals with disabilities. Second page, very short. The city could consider utilizing a accessible advisory committee. City used to have one. We don't have one now, and I thought I know of. And the ADA coordinator to facilitate continuous improvement and ongoing compliance measures. Then on page 3, I also found in that 2018 that the ADA or the ADA individual that was certified for the city was Victor Felix. However, when I checked and I spoke to him yesterday, he said he was no longer working with the city on that, and that was back in 2018. A little bit further, next page down at the bottom, it says the City of Lincoln ADA coordinator has the responsibility and authorization to improve barrier removal as defined by the finalized transition plan, giving to the confinements of the budget and the approval by the city council. ADA coordinator will utilize existing city and department and offices for help. The next page, it's a priority list. Number 2 basically is an item that's in the community center. And the one further down on the page, number 6, it's also the Joyner Park. And the last page of all, I just wanted to make sure that the council knew, not having to go through the issue of calling and or looking on the website, that Mr. Will Foot is not listed as a CASP person, and again, unless it's labeled somewhere else. I'd like to conclude my comments by simply saying this. Does William Jessup and the owners of the Potters know that the stadium, wonderful ballpark, is not fully accessible for the disabled community? As an operator of the stadium, you could be in violation of the ADA and not even know it. The city has been aware of these barriers for quite some time. They are still there. You could be headed down the road of liability and possible monetary as well. Better to know how now than we have two great organizations, and they do a terrific job for everyone and the city. Don't get surprised. Don't get caught off guard. And most importantly, don't believe what you're told. Whatever you do, you really need to get it in writing, because that is the most important part. And the city attorney will most likely come back with a nice little quirk that she normally does. And the bottom line to that is, you're really going to have to watch what you're doing, because that's what got the city in the problem to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Anybody else in the room? Okay, you want to go ahead and let Fran know?
Fran, you are unmuted. Please provide your comment.
Oh, thank you. This is Fran Nevis. I live in 12 Bridges. I just want to say I'm so excited about Industrial Avenue. Thank you for getting that fixed. And I went to the Lincoln Theater Company production on Sunday, and it was really great to see a new curtain. They gave recognition to the city for upgrading the lighting and these wonderful background projection scenes, that they put on the wall, which was very effective. So I wanted to compliment the city on that. And then I noticed Oak Tree Lane, they're really going to town on the intersection. So it looks like maybe the signal light will be coming soon. And it's real interesting that you drive down Oak Tree Lane now, all the way down the end. There's already, I counted 18 houses up, and there might even be more by now. And it looks like the sales homes are almost ready to open to take in people. So I wanted to say that. And then the last city council meeting, when Terry Walters gave the presentation on frontal lobe disease, she had her fundraiser Saturday night, and it was extremely, extremely well attended. So thank you for allowing that presentation at the last meeting. And that's really all I really have to say. So just thanks for doing all you're doing. Thank you, Vice Mayor Brown, for holding up the flag for me to show everybody the symbols. And our state native daughters of the Golden West were very proud to see that the city, was involved in that and let us have that presentation. So it wasn't really a presentation, but it was kind of a presentation, huh? So thank you all for all you're doing.
Thank you, Fran. Appreciate that.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, last call for public comment on non-agenda items. Okay, we'll close public comment. We'll go to item 7, the consent agenda. Are there any questions from the council or anything you'd like to pull? No? Okay, then I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Pearl,
Yes.
Councilmember Reedy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes. We have 2 public hearings tonight. Item 8A, waive full reading and introduce an ordinance by title only adopting the 2025 California Green Code Administrative Building, Fire, Plumbing, Mechanical, Electrical, Energy, Residential, Existing Building Code, and related construction codes as applicable to all construction within the city of Lincoln. And so, Mr. Will Foote, you are up, sir.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and members of the community. Tonight, I'm here to discuss the 2025 California Building Standards Code, which represents the next step in maintaining safety, resilience, and quality of our built environment here in Lincoln. As a reminder, the city's building and construction codes are updated on a 3-year cycle in alignment with the state of California. The California Building Standards Commission adopts new statewide codes that every city and county is required to follow. By adopting these codes, this ensures that our local regulations meet state requirements where needed to safeguard our community. These adoptions ensure consistency across jurisdictions, provide clarity for contractors and design professionals, and most importantly, equip staff with the tools to effectively enforce building safety standards. Staff has carefully reviewed the proposed changes and confirms that they are exempt from CEQA and under the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act. The adoption of these codes does not approve any physical development project, nor does it alter the way projects are reviewed. Instead, it simply ensures our regulations remain consistent with state law and continue to provide a safe built environment for our residents and businesses. From a financial standpoint, the costs associated with this adoption, such as training, code books, and public outreach, are already budgeted. Plan review, permitting, and inspections continue to be supported by permit and plan check fees. In summary, this action represents an important continuation of the city's commitment to public safety, sustainability, and regional consistency. By adopting the 2025 California Building Standards Code, we align ourselves with state law, provide staff with resources they need, and create predictability for our building community. I'm available for any questions from the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments?
One question.
Yep.
Will, is there anything in the change that's going to could possibly come back to bite us that's a significant impact on us, your department planning, or any of our developers?
So there's nothing that wasn't anticipated as far as significant code changes, and there was some legislation recently passed in June that don't allow for added provisions to the residential code, which really helps our builder community.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
I really appreciate the work that you do and the knowledge that you have from what I've seen and from my own background in construction of different trades. I can see that you go over and above what I think would be considered, I don't want to say satisfactory, but doing really well in a community. And so, yeah, again, I appreciate all the hard work that you put into that and what you bring to the city.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Is there any testimony on this? Mr. Chapman?
Madam Mayor, council members, city staff, just a clarification, I guess. I heard in the presentation that the amount of, it's going to cost the city to do this. Does anybody have a dollar amount on what this is costing the city? I think I heard that it was budgeted, but I don't know what the item was. And to make sure I heard this correctly, it is indeed state law. You don't have a choice. Is that right?
Or Sean, yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, so it's not every, is it every year, Will, that we do it?
It's every 3 years.
3 years? So yeah, there's no choice. The how we choose to implement it is the subject of much negotiation with the building community, but we try to be fair and set a date where everything becomes that.
Well, and also so that here in the fiscal impact in the staff report, that the costs reviewing plans and issuing building permits and conducting inspections are covered by the plan checks and permit fees.
Yeah, there's no direct fiscal impact. I mean, Will may order some new code books, but not beyond that.
Okay, any other testimony on this item? Anybody online? Okay, close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. There's no other comments or questions or concerns, and I'll accept a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Reedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pearl,
Yes.
Mayor Andriata.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Will. Appreciate it. Item 8B, receive report on the 2025 public health goals. Mr. Chris Nelson. Good to have you.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here this evening to present the 2025 Public Health Goals Report, which is required by California Health and Safety Code every 3 years. This report compares our drinking water quality to non-enforceable public health goals, which are set by the US EPA and the California EPA. The federal or the US EPA equivalent would be maximum contamination level goals. It supplements our annual consumer confidence report, which confirms each year annually that our water meets or exceeds all health goals and public standards. Some of the key findings from our report this third year: our water complies with all maximum contamination levels, but there are two constituents that did come across that were detected above the public health goal. But again, they were below the maximum contamination levels. The first is arsenic. The public health goal is 0.004 parts per billion. The maximum contamination level for arsenic is 10 parts per billion. 1 part per billion is like 1 drop of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, just to put into context. Detected in 2023 at Moore Well at 2.5 parts per billion, and at Fitiment Well at 2.3 parts per billion. And those are two of our raw water sources. The health risk at the public health goal is 1 excess cancer case per 1 million over a lifetime. The treatment for arsenic is ion exchange. There's other options, activated carbon, but the cost would generally be around $2.5 million to $3 million annually to treat for that. The second constituent was perfluorooctane sulfonate, or PFOS. It's under the PFOS family, and it has a public health goal of 1 part per trillion and a maximum contamination level of 4 parts per trillion. 1 part per trillion, just to put in context, is 1 drop of water in about 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools, which is a much lower level than 1 part per billion. It was detected in 2024 at the Airport South Well at 4 parts per trillion. That well should be noted that it has not been in use for production since 2023. The health risk associated with PFOS is 1 excess cancer case per million over a lifetime. The treatment, again, ion exchange would be the ideal treatment. The cost would be about $1.5 million annually, with an initial capital investment of about $12 million. So looking at talking about cost, treating below the public health goal requires costly technologies like ion exchange or reverse osmosis. The health benefits to further reduce below public health goals and the already low levels that we are seeing are uncertain without further study. Just for everyone's information, we do have a PFOS study that is budgeted for in this coming fiscal year, our current fiscal year, excuse me. And we're going to be taking a look at source, possible treatment, possible impacts, and how the groundwater moves and how those contaminants move with it. Recommendation tonight, our water is safe and meets all standards. Given the high costs and uncertain benefits of additional treatment, staff recommends no action at this time. We request the council hold a public hearing to gather comments, and if no significant changes are needed, accept the 2025 Public Health Goal Report. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, any questions? Okay, open the public hearing. Is there any testimony on this item? Okay, anybody online? No? Okay, close public hearing, bring it back to the council. And so are we taking a vote to receive the report, or are we just receiving the report? Okay,
Just
so
receiving the
there's no
report.
action to receive it, we just. receive it.
Correct.
Okay,
And I would like to add, just for the public, we are not unaware of the public concern over this issue as it becomes more public and growing concerns, and the state regulations as far as what is reportable versus actionable are changing. The city is participating as a plaintiff in a class action lawsuit for a potential recovery that would assist in mitigation of our wells. We have retained outside counsel to look at the potential for claims that we may have against our historic environmental insurance for claims that may also help us with remediation if those requirements come into place in the future. So we are being very forward-looking at this issue.
I appreciate that very much. Okay, moving on to general business. Item 9A, adopt a resolution accepting the fire master plan study prepared by AP Triton as a guiding document for fire department operations, staffing, and future station planning. Chief Mejia, hello.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, City Council, Anthony Mejia, Fire Chief. Tonight, you're going to receive a presentation from AP Triton for the Fire Master Plan. I want to introduce Frank Blackley, who's going to be giving the presentation. Been working alongside Frank for the last 18 months. You really never know who you're going to get when you start working with consultants. So I would just tell you, we got a good pick, and they really worked well with our staff. They brought in a great team, and we're very impressed with the guiding document that it's leaving us. So I'm going to turn it over to Frank, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Frank Blackley. I'm actually in Wilmington, North Carolina. Chief said I didn't need to do a quick trip to California and back, so thank you for that. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. Okay, can you all see that?
Not yet, sir. Oh, there it goes.
Okay, all right.
It's coming.
So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly.
There you go, we're good.
Okay. So first off, the purpose of the master plan was to really kind of look at where Lincoln is now versus where we think it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. So looking at that, we're basically looking at the community risk, anticipating what the growth is going to look like. As you all well know, it is coming. Give you all some ideas as to what that should look like, and then really keep you all from lagging behind in future development. We looked at lots of data that you all provided, specifically your incident data, your community risk data, and basically what we tried to do was look at some specific identifying factors that may influence the risk in the community for you all. As you well know, your population has increased substantially over the last 10 years. You're probably well over 53,000 now. About 20 square miles, incorporated in 1890, and you operating out of 3 fire stations currently. Services provided, you're providing, of course, the traditional structure fire suppression, EMS at the basic life support level, hazardous materials at the awareness level, doing lots of life safety programs through inspections and plan reviews, and then you've got a pretty good community risk reduction program throughout the organization. The initial study area that we had, this was before the Village 5A annexation. Population density. Your financial overview, real quickly here. The fire department is primarily funded through the general fund and any CIP that you all have specifically for them. Funding from additional staffing positions came from the ARPA funds from COVID. Obviously, Village 5A is going to be a pretty substantial impact on not just the fire department, but the city too. So, of course, that includes building a new fire station, hiring additional personnel, and then purchasing new apparatus and equipment to support the new station. Station overviews, you have 3 current stations. 2 are 17 years old, and both are in pretty good condition. And Station 35 is your oldest station, and it's also the smallest of the 3. Apparatus overview, your 3 frontline engines are in good condition. You do have 3 apparatus that are on order. New engines not expected till 2025. And if Chief May has said anything, he has talked about the long delays in getting new apparatus ordered, especially if it's an engine or a ladder truck. New crash rig and brush rig are also on order and expected delivery next year. You currently have no ladder truck. Within the city, you're dependent upon automatic aid departments for that. Your reserve engines are in fair conditions, and then your type 3 and 6 engines are in either good or poor condition. The fire department uses ImageTrend as its record management system. All the apparatus have mobile computers, and they are transitioning to what is called Tablet Command. It's for pre-incident planning software, specifically for any type of target hazards and also incident management. So service delivery and performance. Nothing here is unusual for any fire department, specifically regarding the percentage of medical and rescue type or EMS responses. 68%, that's your bulk of the calls that you all respond to. That is typical throughout the United States with that. So you do receive quite a bit of mutual aid is received, but much more is given to either the county or your other neighboring organizations. Response load history, and this is from 2021 through 2024. As you can see here, there's been a gradual increase in the number of incidents that they are responding to, both EMS and fire. Incidents by hour a day, this is nothing unusual either. This is typical. As people wake up, the number of incidents tend to increase, and then they level off, and then as you go into the evening, they decrease again. Service demand by day of week, Monday through Friday are your busiest days, and on the weekends it slows down, Saturday and Sunday. Service demand by month, this is pretty even because you have to consider that January has 31 days where February has 28. So these would really kind of even out if all the months had the same number of days. Service demand by day and time, as you can see, the number of incidents increase on Monday, and specifically between 11 and 12 are your busiest times on Monday and also Thursdays. Service demand, this is looking at all of the incidents between 21 and 24, looking at the density, where are those occurring? Most of those are going to be in the build-up portions of the city. Service demand for fires, these are actual locations where fires have occurred. And this includes the areas in the unincorporated areas or the local cities. Same thing with service demand for EMS. Typically what you see is that the fire and EMS typically have about the same density for incidents. This is a map of the 5-mile station travel distance for stations. This is somewhat considered part of ISO, but the main thing that they're going to be looking at is going to be this map here. Is the 1.5 mile distance for an engine by road miles. For the maximum amount of credit for ISO, you have to have a station within every 1.5 miles. That is difficult to meet in most places. Here, I'm gonna go through this real quick. This is kind of a little busy looking, but it really kind of talks about what happens when an alarm comes into your dispatch center. So these percentages that we're looking at here is how long does it take to do things? In other words, how long does it take for somebody in the dispatch center to actually answer the call? Then they go to alarm processing. How long does it take for them to take the information and dispatch it out? And then it comes down to the fire department. From the time of dispatch to the time they're en route is the turnout time. What does that look like? Then, of course, you're getting into how long does it take for the first engine to get there, the second engine, and then the initial full alarm for that. Travel times, this is doing some modeling, the travel times for 4 and 8 minutes throughout the city. As you can see, most of the city is going to be covered pretty substantially by the 8-minute travel time, and even most of the major areas of the city are going to be covered by the 4-minute. We do have on this map showing the areas for Village 5A. 911 center call processing times, as you can see, the call processing times are really much higher than what we would like to see, trying to get those alarms out. But some of that has to do with the type of call, whether it's a EMS, it's a fire, so forth. Turnout times for all incidents, for others, which is pretty much everything but EMS responses, the times for getting out are pretty high. So that's something that the fire department is already working on. Same thing with EMS. Some of this can be have to do with the time of day, where they're at, what they may have going on around the stations. Turnout time by hour. First to travel time by incident. As you can see here, most everything for your first out engines is well within the 7 minutes for fire, EMS, and other type of responses. Total response times by hour. So this is one that we really kind of like to key in on is the effective response force. How long does it take for personnel to arrive on scene if they actually have a fire? As you can see, the central part of the district is able to, but as you get into the outer stations, it's not is you're not able to get as many people because they're not as close together. Workload. 25%, almost 25% of your calls, you have 2 incidents going on at the same time, which will cause either a delayed response from another station because they're out on the call and another one has to come in, or you're having to have automatic aid come in to take the response. Population projections, looking at those, this is kind of looking at where you are now, and this is kind of like the high and low, what to expect based on past history, and this may obviously increase with Village 5A. Population density projections. Incident volume projection. As you can see, we've already had a pretty substantial increase in responses, and you're kind of looking at within the next less than 10 years, you're looking at over 10,000 responses for the department, which is a pretty substantial increase. We did do a customer survey. I'm not going to go through all of the, where everyone was from, but we asked whether or not they had received any response or received any services from the fire department. 38% said yes, 45% no, and then there was a yes for non-emergency responses where they either saw them at a community event or station visit. Most everyone was very, very satisfied or satisfied with the services that are currently being provided. The importance of services, number one was EMS. That's not unusual. And then fire suppression was a close second for that. Then also somewhat unusual was emergency management was almost at 60% for that. Planning consideration for the future, they want to make sure that everybody is technically competent of what they're doing. They also want to make sure they're maintaining current emergency response times, and so forth. But overall, it was a very good survey. What are the top 3 expectations? You want rapid response times, highly trained personnel, proper equipment and resources. And some other themes that kind of popped out was they're really interested in community safety and fire prevention, and not just fire prevention, but injury prevention. They want everybody to be professional and also compassionate and have adequate staffing and funding. So what do they do well? Obviously, they do emergency response and arrive quickly. They're professional. They're engaged in the community. More themes. Once again, compassion comes out, friendliness, their resourcefulness despite some of their staffing challenges, and they do fire prevention and public education very well. What changes or development would you like to see in the Department of Services in the next 3 to 5 years? Obviously, expanded stations, enhancing operational readiness, strengthening community safety and engagement through wildfire risk reduction for that. Here's our key findings. Development of Village 5A is going to be really impacting the fire department by 2028, which will be here before you know it. You have a minimal number of firefighters assigned to each shift, which results in a overtime when there's a vacancy, whether it's on vacation, someone's sick, they're out on FMLA, they're injured, whatever it may be. Operational staff is only certified at the hazardous materials awareness level, and we've got a recommendation for that. The fire marshal is currently a shift battalion chief. There's no defined schedule for inspecting all the commercial occupancies inside the city. Not all occupancies have been identified for safety inspections, and if a unit is canceled en route, when they've entered their information on their report, it should be none. And so they've got some data issues that they've got to correct. There's currently no quality control policy or procedure for reviewing incident reports to make sure that they're accurate. They've used the right coding. They haven't technically established any performance goals for incident response. That may be something they may have a discussion with you all about. Currently, you have no renovation or replacement capital fund for your facilities. City does not have a first responder fee for EMS incidents. That may be something you want to consider in the future. You're only responding to BLS type calls at that level. You haven't developed the vision statement, but I know Chief Mejia, it will be working on that. This has been completed, and this is stuff that we like to see as we're doing reports, things that are finished or have been completed since we started. And that is developing departmental standard operating procedures and policies, and those have been adopted. Training is provided to firefighters, but there's not any typical competency-based training programs or annual training program that exists currently. Don't have a dedicated training facility for ISO requirements. There's not another capital fund for replacing apparatus. The 911 center has no formal performance benchmarks, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about with call processing times. How long does it take for them to get a call from the time it's received into there and they dispatch it? There's also no quality management or assurance programs in place for reviewing 911 calls, and the ring time in the dispatch center is currently not recorded. So, recommendations. Obviously, you're going to need to hire additional staff for Village 5A that meets NFPA 1710 recommendations. Begin the planning process for the new station. As you well know, I heard you all talking about the new code adoptions and people on city council having construction background. You know how long it takes to get something built, especially when you're dealing with local government. Begin the process of purchasing that new apparatus for that station because of the extended delivery times. And then as you're looking down the road, at some point, a ladder truck is going to be necessary because of the commercial development in Village 5A. You know, that's going to be a few years down the road, but that is coming. This is just an outline here or a map showing the current fire stations, and then Station 36 is the station that will be built in the Village 5A area, and then also looking on the south end, Station 37, really for the future to begin thinking about that. Short-term recommendations. One of the things that we suggest is an additional firefighter to assist with staffing to help with the overtime. This will require, it's not just as easy as hiring someone else. You know, there may be some modifications to your current union contract with that, and then, you know, other issues that may pop up. The fire department should train all its firefighters to at least the hazardous material operations level. That gives them a little bit more flexibility when they go to a hazardous material incident. Hire a fire marshal and an inspector. Investigate the implementations of an ALS response capabilities for the city of Lincoln. That is something to really kind of look at now to improve EMS, because that was one of the things that popped up during the community survey. Develop that schedule to inspect all commercial occupancies, develop that quality control process to review incident times, and develop the vision statement. And as I've said, you've already completed the SOGs and migration of them into a company called Lexipol. They're the ones that have they're using for that process. Institute that competency-based approach to training development department-wide. Once again, something else that's been completed is the annual training plan. That's done. Develop performance goals for incident response. We talked about that a little bit ago. And then develop benchmarks for the 911 center and look at their staffing levels in there, because what we found out is if someone has to get something to eat, you know, take a break, they at times have to bring in a police officer to staff the 911 center. Midterm recommendations, consider implementing a first responder fee, develop a dedicated fire training facility, and this may be something to look at for the new station for Village 5A, and develop a capital replacement program for both apparatus and fire stations. And last one, create a renovation or replacement plan for facilities. Already discussed that. So just some issues that you have to think about. There's some new OSHA guidelines that may be coming down for fire departments and how they operate on the fire ground. Of course, everyone knows about inflation, cost of apparatus, and also equipment. The last one I'm going to bring up is called the National Emergency Response Information System. The current way that fire departments are doing reports for incidents is getting ready to change. It's going to be a pretty substantial change, not just in California, but nationwide. So it's something to make sure that they're understanding how that process is going to work within the record management system. That was quick, down and dirty. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, I'm sure we do. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. Okay. I have a question for you really quickly, before we move on the training center. Do you know if WAPMA is still working with Sierra College to buy that land to build a training center?
They agreed, the contract was done with Sierra College, so now it's on them to fund the
Okay.
construction.
But it's probably still a few years out.
We have not heard anything since
Okay.
committing earlier
Chief
this summer.
Mejia, have you heard anything about the training center that Sierra College intends to build for police and fire training?
Yeah, we've heard that it's in the works, and that's definitely going to be an option. For a city our size, we're not going to build a training facility. We got to figure out a way to have a cooperative agreement with someone. I've actually even explored as far out as Yuba City College, just because even if it's a field trip to meet that ISO requirement once a year, really the big one for us is live fire training. You have to get firefighters in it at least once a year to meet those requirements. And you can't just do that in your backyard. You want to do that in a facility that's got, controls in place. And so, yeah, but the one for Sierra College, we're optimistic that will go through. And if it does, it'll be a big joint center for everybody.
You guys have other questions before I ask my other ones? You want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
First, I'd like to congratulate the consultant on the amount and depth of the information. I mean, I've looked at a lot of consultant reports over my life, and this is an incredible amount of information there, which I know is really going to be serving us in the long term over here. Even looking at just the summary recommendations, there's an incredible amount there. A couple of questions that I had. We talked about the requirement, or recommendation perhaps for a ladder truck with 3 stories. In Village 5, are we going to be getting any?
Probably.
Okay.
So I would say, when you think about commercial, setting aside retail, some of that commercial will likely be office space, and, modern office space are usually at least 3 stories these days.
Well, considering we're sitting in a 4-story building right
right.
now.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's correct. So what I would say is that
We're only on the 3rd floor.
Yes.
So what I would say is currently we are lacking that.
Yeah.
And we're basically relying on mutual aid for those rescues if they happened. It's not a great place to be, but it's a place that a lot of cities are in until they can get the funding and the staffing for something like a ladder truck. But it is definitely something that we're going to put in our future. And I think that even if Village 5 had it, we'd probably house it closer into the heart of the city than out by Village 5.
Okay. And this is kind of a rhetorical question for our city manager. What's the story on the fire marshal?
That was one of my questions. Thank you.
So without going into super detail about the who and so council approved a fire marshal position in this budget, and we have a person that we hope will be transitioning into that role. So it'll be a standalone. The way we had it structured was that it was going to work under the community development department. As we thought more about it, the way it'll actually work is that person will still work under Chief Mejia directly, but essentially serve all the development needs. And we've known, it's actually kind of interesting, one little aside. If you look at the report and he goes into the key findings and they're listing all the things we haven't done or should have done or need to do, can kind of seem a little bit onerous. But if you think about it, like, their fire departments kind of have like 3 levels of maturities. You have what Lincoln once was a long time ago, which is this volunteer department that served the community just fine. And then you get to a level of size where you need paid people to do the work 24/7, which is sort of what we got into, and now we're really in now. But what I think you're hearing out of the consultant is we're getting to a size where we need to mature into that last level where you have advanced equipment and backup staff to cover more overtime and sick calls. It's not easy, right? Like we were doing some table napkin math. That's probably, if you count the 2 stations we need to build, we're probably talking in the $75 million range to build both and equip them with apparatus, and then call it, today's dollars, $10 million per station to staff them. So there's a lot to think about. But, as with all things in Lincoln, if we don't have a plan to get there, then talking.
On the construction of the new fire stations, when would they be coming in? At the beginning of the project, the midterm, midpoint, or towards the end?
I think the recommendation is in the report is to attempt to get those built early on in the project. If I remember the report correctly, it specifically indicates for Village 5 at least that be built prior to people moving into homes there. And I understand why. It's a bit more complex as it relates to how development happens and the pace at which it occurs. And so what we want to be a little bit cognizant of is making sure that thing is being built and we are prepared to staff it, because there's nothing worse, as you and I have talked about, in lots and lots and lots of communities. They build a fire station, and that part's actually pretty easy. The putting people in it part is pretty hard. And it's not a good look to have people drive by a brand new fire station and it be empty for a couple of years. So I just want to make sure that we're tuning up the CFDs in such a way that we can bring on enough people to at least get a skeleton crew having that open during peak hours at the minimum to start.
And one of the other midterm recommendations was the first responder fee, and I know that a number of communities have first responder fees. If you transport, you can get all the revenue, but if you don't transport, like we don't transport, then we provide all the service and we get absolutely nothing. So an option is a first responder fee. And I know we looked at this in the past, and typically there's no charge if it's not covered by insurance. So I wouldn't want people to get excited about, oh my God, we call the fire department and all of a sudden, poof, they come and all of a sudden they get $1,000 bill.
Yeah, so Chief Mejia can speak to that a little bit, but a lot of departments have done this, what I would say the very, very wrong way, which is they maybe went a little too heavy where they were assessing those charges regardless of what so you get in a car accident and you show up, obviously it's a horrible day for you. And then 2 weeks later, you get a bill for $1,000. Like no one's pretty happy with that because they're already paying taxes for the service. What Councilmember Pearl is referring to is essentially a transfer of what is being received by EMS agencies already. If you were transported to, your insurance is paying for that transport. And so AMR or whoever's transporting you is receiving that revenue versus our fire department providing the same service. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, Chief? I know we've talked about that a lot.
Really, I would say in our position as a BLS fire department, I would think it would be out of norm to have a first responder fee for BLS agencies. Really what we're going to be providing is when we go ALS moving forward is then we can provide those paramedic life-saving services early on. And what actually we can recoup some of that money from AMR. We can work out a contract. That's how it's worked out quite often, where you can actually recoup even if they don't recoup. So what we do is say, hey, if we got there first and we started ALS service, then this is how our fee is for this, and we can receive it from them, which is a more sustained way. We'd probably take a little bit of a cut than that higher rate. But it would be something I would definitely want to steer from if we could find other funding sources, because I just definitely think it muckies the water when you're providing service like that. And we don't want to have any hesitancy for anybody calling 911. And I can see as this becomes the norm, this is not how it used to be. You do find that. You do find people not wanting to call 911 and do other avenue instead of just using that service, which we want to provide for them at all times. So.
And the last question is, I can't believe we don't have a vision statement, which I know will be corrected pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
So, well, and that is one that I actually started as a deputy fire chief, but that is something that for the vision, it really is rooted in the mission. And we really didn't have the mission statement. And we actually had a pretty copy paste one. And I put together a group, and right now we currently have a group. It's a mission, vision, values group. And what I'm really looking at is something that these firefighters can buy in on. It's not something I just want to rubber stamp and put down on the department and say, hey, this is where we're headed. And so for me, that process is something that we need to cultivate and actually have time and let the firefighters have buy-in on. And this group is the one that really started this paid fire department. So with that, I want them to make sure that they have their marks on it, and it doesn't happen as fast as you want it to. But I think what we have is we have a couple options that we're really kind of honing in on. And I'm really happy with where we're at. And I think we'll be able to get that vision statement out along with the strategic plan we're looking at, but a little bit slower than liked, but yeah.
Well, and I just wanted to remind the public that you are working towards the ALS fire department. And I know you just started that process, but
Correct.
Where are we at in that? Like
So, yeah, awesome. I had looked at the applications. We had 140 applicants. And out of the 140, we actually had 10 that were medics. And so 10 that were medics and 10 that were in school. I'm projecting that we'll probably have 5 openings by December. So what my goal is to try to get 5 ALS paramedics on board. And then it's actually faster than what we really thought. And we have to get with the local LEMSA EMS agency and figure out the exact action plan. But I'm really kind of pushing our department to have a projection date of somewhere right around next fiscal and try to launch our first ALS engine in the city of Lincoln.
That's exciting. Can't wait. I have an adjacent question, something that we've been talking about, and I've actually had several people ask me recently, and we brought it up a few months ago. Are we need to know what our evacuation plan is if there's, God forbid, a large fire in town or whatever? I would really like for the council to be briefed on that and know, do we have an evacuation plan, which I'm sure we do. How do we let the public know about that? And so I don't know if that's part of this plan, but I just kind of wanted to ask about that. And
Yeah, so definitely an evacuation plan is kind of a tricky thing in the sense that typically it's going to be the sheriffs that will run a large scale. It's going to start off smaller with Lincoln PD, and they're going to do an immediate evacuation plan. Let's say we had a large scale wildland fire, the sheriffs are going to come in. And what they do is they have a computer system that will start breaking off branches. So some counties, what they'll do is they'll have pre-designated evacuation plans. And it's kind of clean in the sense that you have sections that you can say, hey, evacuate this section, people get notified and go. But the problem with that is that sometimes it bleeds over into areas that aren't affected because they're predetermined. So then you launch this evacuation plan and you have pure panic going across, and you start seeing like the Pacific Palisades stuff, people in their cars trying to get out. And really you don't need to get half those people out. So the way this county works, I've been a part of a lot of our evacuation plan training. We actually have some training tomorrow. I think I'm going to it. And so, but yeah, really what it is, I think there's not a predetermined set way of doing it. We probably just need to get a good notification system that can show people when areas are going to be evacuated and what routes to take, and let the sheriffs come in and do what they do, which I think the Placer County sheriffs do a great job. And they will really determine those routes of travel and get people out. Because if you start setting up pre-plans, the problem with that is,
because things change, right?
absolutely.
Yes,
So you get people saying, oh, I always go out to the right and make a left. And then next thing you know, the fire has moved over to that direction.
That makes
And they
perfect
get in that muscle memory. And what you have to do in an emergency like that is be very flexible. And really, you need real-time information. The Watch Duty app is a way that I keep trying to press to people that I think we can get out that real-time information, because we can actually put out evacuation orders on that app, and that's going to get out in real time instead of having all these different devices and apps that people have to go through. And that's picking up on real-time radio traffic.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, because if there is a fire or tragedy or natural disaster, it is very fluid, right? You never know what's going to happen. And so I think you're right. I think the information for them to know how to get the information and to be ready to listen and to move is better than having, this is the evacuation plan, because it could change. So.
Yeah, and the document that we're coming out on the website's getting redone. And one of the documents that we have coming out is going to be our Ready, Set, Go document. And that's really for wildland preparedness. And really that's going to get you ready to evacuate, to tell you what you need to have ready before an emergency ever happens, what you should be doing as soon as you find out an emergency is going on, and then what you should do as soon as you get told, hey, you need to evacuate or you have an immediate need. So I think that'll be very helpful.
Right, perfect. Okay, you guys have anything?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you've already asked most of my
Okay.
questions, which I definitely appreciate. The comment that I was gonna have is, once we get the ALS put into place, I noticed that with some of the response times, they ought to go down, because some of those calls, like you're saying, are happening at the same time, but they're not at the fire station. And they could be waiting for one of those AMR to show up, and
Yes.
that kills it. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's the main goal for me, is really getting an ALS unit on scene as fast as possible. And even if that response time is a little extended by AMR, it's not delaying those life-saving medic measures that we'd be doing at the time.
My compliments on getting through 56 slides in that time and the amount of
Yes.
information.
He was put on a pretty good time
It
crunch.
was very impressive, Frank, right?
Yes.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Not to oversimplify, but in reading the hundreds of pages of the report, it seemed that basically what we were doing is taking some best practices and marrying them with Lincoln data. And my question for you was, where were the outliers with Lincoln? Like things that didn't fit in, circumstances that are unique here that you don't see in other communities. Were there any of those? What are they?
Yeah, I think our biggest thing that we're battling right now is just that we're a BLS agency. And that really, because we're surrounded by all ALS agencies. So that kind of puts us in an interesting dynamic where even if we go to a neighboring agency to provide mutual aid, they still send a second engine to help out because they have ALS capabilities and we don't. So within the region, we're drawing extra resources and we're kind of handling things a little bit limited with that. So I think when you look at some of the data and you're looking at some of those times, it's unique due to those factors. But besides that, overall, looking at the report, nothing was super glaring. All the recommendations might seem pretty big and wordy, but they're very easily accomplished with very little funds, to be quite honest. Some of them are, the bigger ones of building stations and stuff, but the smaller ones are going to be easy things for us to tackle and to accomplish.
So no underlying issues that are bigger or more complicated than other communities, just the ALS, BLS distinction.
Yeah, I would say that. I think we have a good challenge with the wildland-urban interface, just the way the mix of it is. But besides that, like, there's really nothing that I'm seeing that would be a huge cause for concern. Like I told you, I think our number one priority is to try to make sure that we can provide ALS service and not give our citizens an extended time. And that would really be it. And the report didn't quite capture all that because it was a little bit behind it. But really, that would be our number one concern right now.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, let's go out for public comment. I have one card so far. Mr. Stan Nader.
Madam Mayor and Council, after reviewing the Tritation Fire Report, I focused my attention on the financials report section of the document. This discussion there centered around the condition of the general fund, which provides the majority of funding for the fire department. After looking at the 25-27 city budget, it shows the general fund revenue $60.4 million and expenses at $66.9 million, a significant budget shortfall. The revenue makeup of the general fund based on the Tritation report, fire report, is 54% from property tax and 22% from sales tax. I looked on the internet as to what the ratio of property tax to sales tax should be, and there was no standard answer. It did state that normal amount for property tax should be 70%. The general fund is currently being backstopped by the Standard American Fund, which is drawing from the American Rescue Plan Act funds, which will be depleted by 2027, according to the report. The report states that to replace these funds will require a 17% increase in the sales from new business sales, which is equivalent to $10 million. It was once said that Lincoln would need 10 Walmarts to allow the city to be to have sustainable revenue. And looking at the 24-29 economic development plan under priority 1, and bullet number 4, it lists the goal to increase municipal tax revenue. In the 23-24 Strategic Action Plan, it states that the number one priority is to present to the citizens of Lincoln an opportunity to vote for a half-cent sales increase in the sales tax to support public safety. I am aware that the city cannot advocate for this measure to pass, but the city can provide information why the passage would be critical to maintain the public safety services and even to expand services as laid out in this report. Time is of the essence, and the next election is 25 months away. I would believe it's important to start town hall meetings throughout the city soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nader, that was a great segue into one of the points that I wanted to make, and I'm sure the council would too, is that as we've presented before, and maybe the public isn't as aware because we've been talking about a lot, we are currently and strategically working on all of that. And thanks to a lot of work that staff did and Councilmember Reedy, we have uncovered several tax revenue areas where Lincoln has been structurally deficit, or it's not a deficit in the sense that Lincoln made a mistake. It's a deficit or defect going back almost 30 years. And we are currently working with the county to get those brought up to parity with the rest of the county. And so I won't say if we get it done, when we get it done, because we are going to get it done. That will go a long way for the things that we're talking about here, police and fire and police. And so rest assured that we're not ignorant of what's happening. We're very aware when we did our budget that if we don't fix the problem in 3 years, it will be a problem. And that's why we're doing all this work now. So we're very aware of it, and we are working on it every single day. And we're very confident and actually very excited about the end result when we get it finished. So just wanted to make that comment. Are there any other public comments on this item? Anybody online? Okay, all right. Bring it back. Yeah,
I had a follow-up question.
yes, please.
On an ALS platform, we have 3 firefighters on a rig at this point. If we have 1 paramedic, is that sufficient to get the job done minimally? Understand that if we had 3 paramedics, it would be best, but will 1 get the job done?
Yeah, so one paramedic is industry standard for the most part.
Okay.
So yeah, some departments will have 2 on a fire engine, but really 1 is industry standard, especially in California. And they really, what they do is they message up with the other paramedic that's on AMR. And so really, if you can start getting stuff going before they get there, then those 2 paramedics get together and now you have 2 on scene. So that would be the goal.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so again, are we just accepting the report, or are we, okay, there is a resolution, that's, okay, oh yeah, okay. So if there's no other questions or comments, then roll call, or I need a motion.
So moved.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reedy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Pearl.
Yes.
Mayor Andriata.
Yes. All right, thank you all for that, really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Good.
All right, item 9B, receive a report on the City of Lincoln zoning code update, pre-study, discussion, and direction. So Michaela, hello.
Good evening, council members. Michaela Noble, Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. I'm just here to introduce our consultant tonight, but I'll just give you a little bit of a background of the item we have before you tonight. You're receiving a report on our zoning code pre-study. Background for this, the zoning code, Title 18 in the Lincoln Municipal Code was adopted back in 1979. Since then, no comprehensive update has been done, which is about a 45-year delay. Over time, staff works with the municipal code all the time, and we've noticed some deficiencies in the code. Some being out of date with, out of compliance with state code, as well as just some difficulty as readability. There'll be a sentence that's 8 lines long, and you really can't determine what it's trying to say. With that being said, we contacted Opticos Design, Inc. To perform a high-level analysis of Title 18 to provide some recommendations to improve our code. A memo was provided for you all tonight within the staff report to outline Opticos's findings. And tonight, Cecilia Kim, Planning Manager with Opticos, will be giving a brief presentation highlighting the key takeaways. Staff is requesting tonight direction to proceed with a formal code update. And with that being said, I will hand it over to Cecilia, who's on Zoom.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michaela. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, and the community. My name is Cecilia Kim. As Michaela mentioned, we are with Opticos Design. I also have with me my colleague Roger Foreman online as well. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. And let's see if this will work. Okay. Great. Do you see my screen with the key findings and recommendations slide?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So this is as Michaela mentioned, a brief presentation on the key findings and recommendations for the zoning code update pre-study. This pre-study is a high-level analysis of Title 18, which is the zoning code of the Lincoln's Municipal Code. And the main point or purpose of this pre-study was to understand whether the city really needed an update to Title 18 and what that could do for the city. So to review Title 18, our firm focused on the following 6 questions: whether the current structure and organization of Title 18 was effective at this time, and if it's easy to find what you're looking for in the code. What content of the code works well and doesn't need updating, and which content needs replacing or substantial updating. In other words, what needs to be changed in Title 18. Also, is the content in Title 18 clear in its intent as well as its requirements? And does this content effectively serve the community's needs? So before I go into detail and to answer each of these questions, I'll just give you a quick, ending to this summary of recommendations. And really, there are only 4 key recommendations that we have at this time. First is to reorganize the content into appropriate divisions and chapters. And this really relates to the first couple of questions about usability and effectiveness of the structure and organization. Just moving around certain content will really help streamline the Title 18 structure and outline and make it easier to find certain information and improve its usability. The second recommendation is really to make surgical edits and not fix what isn't broken. We do have a recommended approach for the citywide code update included in this presentation. But what this means is that we found that there really are parts that work well for the city at this time and other parts that could use improvement. And this is something that we don't always find in a lot of code pre-studies. There are places where you actually have to start from the ground up, but Lincoln's code Title 18 at this time has parts that the city does use quite effectively and staff is very used to them, but there are also parts that could be improved. The third recommendation is to really better integrate the Title 18 zoning code with other plans that regulate different parts of the city. The City of Lincoln has a multitude of specific plans and general development plans, as well as the in-progress downtown master plan and odds project that is going on. And all of these need to work together for an applicant to be able to find the right information and understand what applies to their particular property and parcel. The final recommendation is to really improve administrative procedures in the Title 18 zoning code to streamline the review process. This would help applicants avoid time and expenses, as well as staff by setting clear expectations for both sides. So in going into the restructuring and reorganization of Title 18, which really looked at the effectiveness of the structure as well as its usability and navigability, we found that referencing and the current structure of locating information in Title 18 is rather challenging. And because of this, we do have a proposed approach included in the memo that sorts this information into chapters and sections by topic. This is not too different from what you currently have, but it does change it just a little bit, as well as the referencing method of how you format that reference to be able to find information more clearly. The point of all of these recommendations is really to make the zoning code more user-friendly, make it easier to find information, and avoid repetitious or conflicting content. There were cases where we found similar content in different locations, and if that problem persists, it can create issues where there's conflict between different portions of the code. Next, our recommendation is to present content in a user-friendly format. Typically, zoning codes are not very user-friendly. They are lengthy text documents with a lot of lists instead of regulations for standards. A lot of different methods have been tried out. Our preferred approach and recommendation is to use tables and diagrams that can communicate standards more clearly and aid the readers, staff, and applicants in both interpretation of the standards as well as clarity and understanding of what those standards are. In addition to this, some guidance on how these standards are measured, such as how building height is measured, length and footprint. Those could be also included as diagrams and tables that will help clarify all of the standards that are being included in Title 18 in a more user-friendly format. As I mentioned, the surgical approach to updating the standards is really in three parts. Removing or replacing any ineffective, outdated, or unnecessary standards, updating standards that are essential but difficult to implement, and a few of these have been identified by staff, and keeping standards that are identified by staff as useful and effective. And to be clear, the memo does not go into detail on what exactly these standards are. That will be a part of, or that should be a part of the future citywide code update. This pre-study is intended to identify whether or not this approach can actually work, and we are recommending that this three-pronged approach would work for the update. The next one is relationship to the specific plans and general development plans. As I mentioned earlier, when an applicant goes to look into Title 18 or a specific plan and general development plan, it's very difficult to find all the applicable standards governing their parcel in one document. So it is important that Title 18, as well as these specific plans and general development plans, are all consistent and comprehensively addressed in one way. This can be done by updating Title 18 to be very clear what the relationship is, as well as identifying where certain standards can be found. For example, if it is in Title 18 or whether it is in a certain specific plan or general development plan. To that end, there is an appendix attached to the memo that has a matrix of all of the different specific plans and general development plans and what topic they cover outside of Title 18. The next one pertaining to administration is to have a very clear step-by-step process so that the applicants know how to demonstrate compliance, but also so that city staff understands how applicants have complied with the standards in Title 18. The other is to provide flexibility where certain existing conditions or unintended outcomes preclude application of the standards. So what this means is that with certain standards, applicants may come across something that is out of their control where they cannot comply with these standards. And there needs to be some built-in flexibility for that in these administrative procedures. Again, the other part of this is to make these standards very objective. Objective standards is something that has been coming down through state law for quite a bit now, and they are intended to streamline the process so that applicants can go through a more limited time for their development processes and review. And this also helps city staff as well to be more efficient with their review processes. And finally, and this is, I think, the most important, is to make sure that all of these standards in Title 18, as well as the code itself, is really relevant to the community's needs. To do so, we recommend modernizing the introduction to Title 18, as well as updating and modernizing content for clarity and best practices, as I mentioned throughout this project or throughout this presentation, and is indicated in the memo itself. The other part of this is really to make sure that the zoning code is used as it is intended as an implementation tool for the general plan. And to do so, it really needs to analyze the general plan's intended physical character and uses, as well as the best fit of where those district designations go throughout the city, and reflect that in the standards of Title 18. So that was a very brief and concise summary of the memo that was provided to you. Some recommendations on where to go from here. The first one, as Michaela mentioned, is to initiate a citywide zoning code update for the purpose of clarifying standards and creating a user-friendly code. And to be clear, while the main point of this was to understand the need for a comprehensive update, the first step in that is actually to make Title 18 more clear in its standards and just modernize the Title 18 code itself. The next part of this is actually a recommendation to organize a working group of local community members and city staff that are familiar with the code as well as the deferred and desired by the community to work through these recommendations, the citywide code update, suggested changes, and any future recommendations for updating Title 18 and quite possibly changes to the general plan so that both are consistent with each other. So with that, I am open for any questions, but I will hand it back to Michaela for any questions from Madam Mayor and the City Council. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Awesome. Hey, questions, comments?
Well, I don't know why we're rushing into this. It served us well for 46 years. No, great.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
One question. One of the last slides had local community members. What does that mean?
So as I said, people that are more familiar with how the zoning code works, so local developers, local architects, designers, construction builders, there could be local organizations. Really, it depends on who is familiar with the zoning code and what the zoning code can do to produce the outcomes that are desired by the community. And I can also let city staff speak to that a little bit as well, too.
It would be lovely if we could just do this in a whole little bubble and just do what staff wanted, but obviously we are not the only people who touch this code. The zoning code should be usable for staff, for developers, as well as any residents who want to do their own, owner builder projects. So it is going to have to be a group to where it's comprehensive of the city as a whole and not just select individual groups. I think Cecilia covered it pretty well of who we're trying to target with that community group.
Reading my mind tonight, yeah. You guys have questions?
I think we're kind of tooling around the general plan with some updates. I think we had funded for some of that. We're in the middle of a downtown master plan. So my question is, what's the tipping point between closing out the books on those other things and then doing this all at once versus doing this, closing them out, and then readdressing how 18 is impacted by that work? And does it make sense to complete the downtown master plan and identify the scope of the general plan changes first and then do it all at once?
Well, I mean, we kind of are, right? So the downtown master plan is in progress and we haven't started this code update. We're asking for your direction. Do you want us to do it now? Do you want us to wait, right? And there's, pros and cons for both. The update to the general plan amendment is going to be bigger project. And while this could be done at the same time, it would also be helpful to that update to have this completed where our code is kind of well organized, easier to read and navigate. Because we're not looking at lots of changes. We're just looking at some honeydew cleanups and really just making it clearer as it stands now. And then, if we need, when we're doing the general plan, an update, we'll have this clean document that we can look at and say, how does this update fold into this? Or are there additional changes that need to be made in the code to help facilitate the update?
Okay. I mean, I guess my initial takeaway is then now it depends on what the cost is.
Right.
Because if it's negligible to do it, to have that benefit going into the general plan review, great. If it's more substantial, then it makes maybe more sense to finish that general plan, not the fine tuning we've been doing, but more importantly, the downtown master plan and incorporate them all. So like speaking for myself, the direction kind of depends on how expensive it is and how much rework will be required once you finish step B and C. Which you can't answer now, but like that's.
Right. Yeah. I mean, hopefully there won't be a lot of rework required once we kind of get this better organized, that we could kind of make the project a bit more manageable by kind of thinking about it in phases. This would be phase one of like this reorganization, while phase two is the downtown master plan, which is ongoing. And then phase three would be the general plan. At least that's how I talk about it with my planning manager, who's probably sitting behind me, like pursing his lips. So, we're kind of looking at these projects where they become kind of hand in glove and wanting to do them in a progression so that we can actually manage them with the staff that we have. And my boss is going to say something.
Yeah, I'm gonna just add something. So, One of the things to remember is that when Michaela and the team here is reviewing projects that are in any of the village areas, they're primarily working off of specific plan documents. So the Village One Master Plan, those 5, on and on. Those contain the standards that they generally apply. So basically, the way I think about it is like layers, right? So where something is obscure, you go to the next one. And where something is obscure there, you go to the general plan, which is the ruling document, even though it's not really a standard-based thing. So most of the project planning work, and you can nod or shake if you disagree, probably happens in those specific plan documents. The zoning code stuff is, I would say, probably a lot more infill / commercial / things that happen in already developed areas or redeveloping areas or places where you're in, where there was one use and now there's another. So any general plan changes that you tweak and decide to make in the future won't affect as much of the technical code, in my opinion, as we probably think. So I think I kind of see them almost as not necessarily separate, but kind of separate in nature. I mean, you do the planning work every day. Am I wrong?
Especially in our newer documents, yes, I'd say that's absolutely correct. Village 1, 5, 7 are pretty much their own comprehensive documents. But as in one of the appendixes, there is a matrix that outlines where there's overlap. So the zoning code is not in its own bubble. It does inherently affect all the specific plannage and GDPs. Some of the plans rely on it more than others to just refer to the zoning code essentially for certain standards, such as parking, for example, is a good one. It really is a mixed bag in the older documents and the newer documents that are the new areas that are actually developing. They are pretty comprehensive, but that matrix is honestly a win right off the get-go to have from staff's perspective for reviewing of all these different standards and trying to find where we have to look for them can be difficult, and the zoning code doesn't even, reference any of the specific plans and general development plans. So yes, they are separate, but they are inherently tied together as some of the documents use that zoning code as its foundational piece.
What kind of a time frame for this were we thinking?
I mean, we won't know. Once we get your direction, we'll have some discussions internally and how to move this forward and pick a consultant and then come back with that agreement to get council's approval for that. And at that time, we'll have a timeline, right? We're going to start it on this date with an expected completion on this date. I could make a stab at a number, but I would be totally guessing. And I hate to do that unless you make me, in which case I will.
One other little just example, I was sharing with Councilmember Reedy earlier, like just to give you an example of quality of life issues in the code. To your point, why mess with anything that's over 40 or 50 years old? So think about this. What was development in the 1960s, 7,000 square foot lots. You might have some homes that were on 10,000 square feet, but it's pretty much 7,000. Now we're seeing very large lots, very small lots, multifamily. And the zoning code, many zoning codes, especially old ones, they didn't think about all these different kinds of land uses in those days because many of them didn't really exist here. So for example, one of the ones that came up very early on in my tenure here was we have a requirement in the zoning code that talks about setbacks for pool equipment. And it's kind of I don't know the exact requirement, but it's a pretty significant setback from your property lines to put pool equipment. Well, that made sense in the 60s when pool equipments were put in, just about as big as the pool and pretty loud. These days, it's a little bit different, and especially if you have a smaller parcel on something you can afford, you may not have a whole lot of room to put in pool equipment after you put in the pool. So, there are these practical things that come up that people like Michaela or Mel or Efren, they have to figure out a way to wiggle around that, and we don't really like doing that. They'd rather just sort of go to the code and say, okay, well, this is the guidance, let's do it this way. So it's just a little example of a cleanup thing that might make life easier for people.
Well, I'm very much in favor of doing the zoning code update. And if it sounds like, I heard all the arguments, sounds like if we do this first, it will help with the general plan. Like, we'll get that done and then it kind of feeds right into it. So.
And we're also not committing to anything at this point.
Say that again?
I don't think we're committing to anything. at
Right.
this point.
Just
Giving them direction.
direction.
Right.
Yeah,
I like the way Nita put it.
Yeah.
You know, give us a direction to look into it and then come back with a timeline. So,
And money.
and money, yeah.
okay, I would like to open it for public comment on this item, if there's anybody who would like to make a comment. Anybody online? Okay, bring it back. So, yeah, so,
I'll move it.
well, I think they're just looking for consensus that we're okay with you moving forward to look at process and timeline and all that. Okay,
Great, we
Great.
appreciate that. And we'll also be bringing back at the next meeting a update of the downtown plan to just give you an idea of where we are now, what we think the direction is for that, and to get your input to make sure we're heading in a direction that council is happy with.
Thank you.
thanks, Michaela, appreciate it. All right, item 9C, adopt a resolution authorizing a memorandum of understanding between the Economic Development Department and the Lincoln Clay Art Center nonprofit in an amount not to exceed $270,000 for building upgrades to the Carnegie Library building. Mr. Scully.
Thank you very much. So just a little bit of history for everyone. Over the last number of years, well, even predating myself, I think it probably goes back to even predating Christine, maybe. The city, and it's no one's fault, but the city has been in kind of like analysis paralysis mode about what to do with the Carnegie after it was shut down. And 12 Bridges Library kind of became the primary library here in town. And there's been lots of discussion, everything from restarting the library to selling the building at one point, that was at least talked about, leasing it to businesses. There's been a lot of ideas. And one of the trips that has occurred throughout the entirety of that process is that there was this sort of myth that, hey, the building is out of code, and so therefore we can't do anything with it because it's going to be just so expensive to get it up to the level that it could be reopened and used. And like a number of different things, whether it be the trucking route study that we're in the middle of right now or a few other things, the first step that just never got taken because it kind of seemed so onerous was, well, what's the number? How much is it going to cost to do what we need to do to make it a usable space? So over that time, the last couple of years, the Economic Development Committee has sort of focused in on a couple of civic buildings that we have in the downtown area, whether it be for upgrades or for repurposing. How can we activate the area a little bit more and follow what the goals are for the general downtown? And this kind of came about in a little bit of an odd way. So one of the members of our Economic Development Committee, Dave Richatellis, and Councilmember Eklund, before she was on the council, sort of took this as like a charge to get an idea about how that building could be used, what would make sense there. There's a variety of ideas that have been posited over the years. And in fact, council, you may recall, budgeted some money, which we partnered with Jessup University as our fiscal agent and hired a consultant, AMS Planning and Research, to conduct a reuse study to identify opportunities for the building and barriers to its public use. Tonight, AMS is here, and they're going to present to you some of their information that they've found. And then we were going to be doing a full presentation as well to the Economic Development Committee next month. But one of the side benefits that came out of this work was it also had some of the people that were involved in it went and really did the work. They worked with some staff here, they consulted some experts. What kinds of building upgrades are needed, regardless of its use, whatever it may be one day? Do we need to carry forward in order to make this building accessible and usable again? And turns out, while it's expensive, it's not the many millions of dollars that we all thought it might be. Your staff report has an attachment that has the phase 1 improvements, and these are what we would pretty much call like your bare minimum things we probably need to fund in order to make it unlock the building for public use. And some of it's quality of life things. There will be some clearing out of old equipment. There's a pergola in the back that's about ready to fall over. It needs to be taken down and potentially replaced. HVAC unit's very old, needs to be replaced. there's a couple of different ADA access improvements that have been identified to make sure that we can get folks from street side up to that raised first floor. Flooring, there's some upgrades to the bathroom areas, interior painting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that number's about $250,000. So as we got that info, more than a month or two ago, initially what I had done is like, oh, wow, okay, so we have that. We had money budgeted in Aaron's budget for civic amenities, and she and I thought, okay, we got to go. We got until December 26th to get this done. So we activated our project guy, Scott Boynton, to get started. And he was just about getting started. And we all started to worry a little bit that when you open up an old building and you start to make some changes, you inevitably will find things that you didn't know or take longer than you thought. And we must get this money out the door by December 26th. Fortuitously, Dave Riccitello, who's here tonight and is also on EDC, said to me, and as an email, it was buried in an email he had sent me, and I honestly hadn't read this portion of it. He said, hey, maybe a better way to do this would be that we've established a nonprofit that has the intent of trying to figure out whatever the Carnegie will become. What if the funds were deposited to us and we will take on the responsibility of contracting for those improvements? So they've developed the scope. They have priced it at prevailing wage, which of course is a requirement. There's a 20% contingency included at that 250 and change number. And this would allow us, much like we've done with a couple other nonprofits. So you have the Friends of McBean is one example. The 4th of July in the Park is another example. There's a few other I'm forgetting, where we've essentially partnered with a nonprofit for a public purpose and allowed them to be project leads on it. We'll still inspect. Scott will still be super involved. Will's team will be super involved. We'll make sure that's all done appropriately into code. But they will be able to, they don't need to rush by the 26th to get it done. They can do it in an appropriate time frame. They may make that deadline anyway. So it made a lot of sense to us. And we have there was one provision that I got to thinking about just from a protection of the city and funds perspective, which was that while we're super excited to have a nonprofit involved, I was also kind of aware that $275,000 is a lot of money, and things happen in the nonprofit world. Boards fall apart, missions change, issues come up that we're not thinking of today. So what would happen if, for whatever reason, it simply just didn't get done next year, or some serious event occurred? We can't take those dollars back once they're given away, because that time frame has passed. So what I did was I called the Lincoln Community Foundation, who's been a partner on a few other items with us, and I said, would you be willing to be a backstop for us? So in the event that for some reason the Lincoln Clay Arts Center nonprofit is unable to perform at some point, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's just say, would you be willing to hold those funds for us in trust? And then we could seek another nonprofit partner to finish up the work if that happened. And they said, absolutely, we'd be happy to do that. And so yet again, super appreciate that organization. So that's the protective measure that I'd want to build into the agreement with the Lincoln Clay Arts Center. The reason why you don't have the actual agreement to review is that we were rushing, and I wanted to make sure I got a thumbs up and an approval from council to move in this direction so we can get these dollars out the door as fast as possible, allowing them to get started on their work. So that's the general concept. I've used language like this before with council in rare circumstances where you just essentially give me your general concurrence, if you do, on the deal points, and then Christine and I work to put together the agreement, and there's language built into the resolution that if I write up something completely crazy, it only can be approved if Christine concurs, and so she's the natural check and balance here. So that's the building component portion of it. I'd be happy to take questions and comments on that part now if you'd like, or we can have the AMS come up and give you a report on their study first. Your choice.
Let's have them come do that.
Okay. Oh, come on up, David. Yeah. Dave Riccitello from the EDC.
My name is David Rich. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm David Riccitello. I'm a member of the Economic Development Committee. I've been there for 3 years, even though it seems a lot longer than 3 years. The other members of the team working on this project include Jim Carnathan. He's vice chair of the Lincoln Clay Arts Center nonprofit. He's an accomplished clay artist. He teaches clay arts at Sun City, and he's very active with the Arts Council of Placer County. So he's very much involved in this arena. Our treasurer and chief financial officer is Bob Green. He was a former EDC member. He's has a long career in commercial and residential development, and he's still active with Coldwell Banker to this day. Our fiscal sponsor is Jessup University. They were our fiscal sponsor on the study, and we are talking to them about being a fiscal sponsor for this next phase. They've not only managed the funds for us, but they've also been a partner on a couple of student projects that we worked with them on this overall project, including a business plan and a marketing and branding concept for the Lincoln Clay Arts Center. We also have a advisory team, Lincoln Clay Arts Center Technical Advisory Team. It's composed of Thomas Moe, who's a retired individual. His background is troubleshooting and cost estimating. He's worked many years formerly with Parsons, very accomplished engineering firm, and he's been involved in numerous commercial and industrial construction and renovation projects. Also on the team is Michael Moyer. He's a retired architect from the Bay Area, a former winner of the Cal Builders Gold Nugget Award. So he's a very accomplished architect. And then Ray Gonzalez, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Ray Gonzalez, he's a local legend in his own right. He's a renowned clay artist. He's the inspiration and driving force behind Feats of Clay, and he teaches the clay arts at Sierra College. So he's part of the advisory team as well. And I'd be remiss in not mentioning Whitney Eklund, who's been very strong supporter of both the downtown area and recognized early on that reactivating the Carnegie is critical to the revitalization of downtown. And she's also was very closely aligned with working with the students at Jessup on the business plan for the Arts Center, as well as the marketing and branding strategy for the Clay Arts Center. So she's been very, very instrumental in our overall effort. And then on the consulting team, we have Bill Blake. He's with AMS Planning and Research. He's the West Coast Director and our team leader. He's got a 25-year career working with local communities and on arts and cultural planning and capital projects. He's a former director of the B Street Theater and was a driving force behind the Sophia Center for the Arts in Sacramento. We also have Kevin Donnelly, who's an accomplished architect and developer with more than 30 years of experience on infill development, mixed-use housing, and hospitality. And he was also involved in the Sophia Center for the Arts in Sacramento. And then finally, we have Mac West, who's with Informal Learning Experiences. Mac has a very accomplished background. He has more than 30 years working on learning experiences with museums and other attractions, extensive teaching experiences at Adelphi University and the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, and a former director of the Carnegie Museum of Natural History and the Cranbrook Institute of Science. So that's our overall team. And so at this point, I'd like to ask Bill to come forward and give you a presentation on his study and recommendation.
Great. Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
It's really been a great pleasure to work with this group. I just got to get my slides set up here quickly. I'm always struck at council meetings by how many things a city manager and assistant city managers have to know about and be versed in. And so City Manager Scully, I'm duly impressed with the preamble to this, kind of understanding what's going on, the nuance.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
It's been great to be up here. We were contacted, I don't know, possibly a year ago. We started working on this in February with David and the team. And it really was about what to do with the Carnegie Library in downtown Lincoln and to use it as a catalyst for driving the economic development and activation of downtown, but also using arts and culture and history actually as a way to do that, some of the tools in the toolbox to do that. So that led them to AMS, and I assembled the team with Mac West and Kevin Donnelly to kind of help us explore this as we go. Here's what I'm going to tell you tonight. The end of the story has a lot to do with what's going on in that photo. There is the making of clay art at a new center that would be in your downtown, which we think kind of foots well. So I'm gonna walk through quickly what we did, what we found at a high level, what the kind of recommendations and outcomes are, and then even walk you through sort of a normalized year of operations at a center that is equipped and renovated to see what that kind of downstream eventuality would look like. And then I'll probably hand it back to David and we'll take your questions if that works for you all. The client, here it is. The building is the building. And when you're working on projects like this with existing structures, whether it's historic theater or old libraries or what have you, the building itself is really stakeholder number one. Where is it? How does it fit on a site? How, in this case, how big or small is it? What are the opportunities that it will allow, enable, and even desire? So we thought a lot about that, and this is really about not only how to use arts, culture, and history to activate your downtown, but how to use this building and this property on the corner to kind of give it a new purpose in this century. What are we, a block away from it? So I'm sure you all are familiar. Our scope of work, we broke it into 3 phases. It really was about examining first activity, who would use it and for what purposes, what sort of content pieces would go on in this building, and then does the building support that and all of that. The other outcome that David and the nonprofit were needing is enough of a plan that will help them take the next steps in terms of making the case for continuing developing this building, which may involve some fundraising and things like that. So what will they need coming out of this to kind of focus the plan and have enough detail that it will be of use to them? So 3 phases. The first phase, what's the situation, all the research pieces, kind of getting up to speed on the building itself, interviewing a number of stakeholders. A bunch of you in this room were on that list. Understanding the market of the region, and we kind of looked at sort of this side of Placer County, what's going on with other arts and cultural facilities, historical assets, things like that. We did a study on both kind of demand and supply. So the demand side, we did a survey of mostly artists, but others who would be interested in using the building to see what their needs might be, and if they would like to locate those in downtown, and then kind of analyzing other things that they would use. In the second phase, we started looking at comparable facilities. What could we learn from similar art centers or history centers or even cultural and historic districts, to see what we could learn and weave that into some recommendations and scenarios for the building. We then develop an activity once we kind of get some focus. What will the activity look like if we make certain choices? And we'll show you what that is tonight. And here we are at outcomes. We have developed a management and operating plan and a financial forecast and are ready to start our deliverables. I think, as David said, we're a little out of sequence. I think what the intent was, we would first meet with the EDC and run through it with them and then come to you all. But I think you described the timing issue well, so I think that's why we're here tonight. Key findings. There's lots of slides of lots of things. I've boiled it into one for you. Really, and it's all there, as you might expect. When you go around and talk to people around Lincoln who are community stakeholders, there is quite a bit of pride in the history of the city, in Gladding McBean, in why that's here, and how you've developed and grown over time, and even thinking about the future that can go on here. There's a lot of interest in activating the library. That is sort of job number one in most people's minds about what is success for this building, is something that's busy and activated and draws people to downtown repeatedly and to stay and linger and have a good time there. We also noted, as we kind of got into the market stuff and talked to Ray Gonzalez and others, and even the folks at Gladding McBean, you have quite a rich history in clay art and clay stuff that goes on here. And as a result, there are a number of events, festivals, and ceramic artists that exist here and that are very active. There is kind of a scene here for it, and it is known outside of here. So in my mind, that is a real scene with what Feats of Clay has done and other things. And certainly, as I talk to other architect friends and mention Gladding McBean, who I've had to explain to my family what it is and what they do. If you say it to an architect, they know immediately what it is. So it's a really neat opportunity here. Yeah, when we talk to ceramic artists about their space needs and what they're doing, they'd like to have studio space outside of the house. They'd like to have a place to exhibit and show and sell their work. Having space that is equipped with kilns and wheels and water and all of those good things really makes it the draw for them, and they have really almost limitless need for that space. So we think these are important things. When we looked at the exemplar facilities, I think the takeaway for you all is that many of them are run as not-for-profits, and they are somewhere around 50 or 60% earned revenue streams, depending on how much they are into classes, mostly, and the other comes from contributed support, donations, grants, memberships of that kind, et cetera, kind of that combination. But in the arts, we're quite used to that. So what are the project objectives? When we really thought about defining success, as we worked through with our steering committee and reported on themes that we'd heard from interviews and other research, I'll say it a bunch of times in this presentation, activating downtown, so important. If it's not activating downtown, it is not a success. That is quite clear and really the #1 objective of the project. There are other objectives that are also important. They are listed here, being a resource for the community, being an artistic resource, a cultural resource, a place that residents and visitors are welcome and can look through, and a place that celebrates your history. The history of Lincoln in all its ways. The natural history, you're very close to the clay deposit, the corporate history that Gladding McBean has, the design and all that's come out of that, kind of trying to celebrate all of that. Being financially sustainable, something that is not just a cost center for the city or is going to bury a nonprofit, I think was key. People believe that to keep it activated and sustained over the long term is key. And certainly artists and the arts community really do see a center that is focused on ceramic art being something that would be welcomed by that community and needed in the community. So we had a lot of great discussion there, and these are the themes. We kind of worked with our committee and developed several scenarios as we were exploring the different ways to go, right? From the beginning, there was really there's a lot of things that wanted to happen in that building. Should it be a history center that has all kinds of exhibits and interpretive stuff in it, and kids and field trips coming all the time for that, that really celebrates that? Or should it be an art center where it's really about making and learning about making things out of clay? So we kind of ran these scenarios, and to kind of summarize them, we looked at if you really leaned into the local history aspect and tried to make that building really be about interpreting Gladding McBean and all the related stories that go there, what is the earned revenue potential? What is the % of contributed support you would need? And of course, how much does it activate downtown? And when we sort of thought through all that you would have to do to make that a very active history interpretive center, which means you need people to not come once, but come multiple times every year. That's a lot of things that have to happen in not a very big building. So the earned revenue potential is kind of low. People will have a hard time paying admission to go into a 2,200 square foot building on 2 floors and walk around and look at stuff on display or put on VR goggles and that. So we don't think there's a lot of earned revenue. So therefore you would need a lot more contributed support. And realistically, how much foot traffic is that going to draw to downtown? There may be field trips, kids on buses. They don't tend to stick around and have dinner and drinks after the field trip. So, you know, it's some, but it was maybe not the best way to meet our major objectives, given the input we'd had and the space we have to work with. The things that we think would do more were really things in the clay world. So this idea of expanding Feats of Clay, it's a great event. It has been restarted in talking with the organizers of that, the ability to have the big event in the spring, but what about a student art festival in the fall? What about a holiday show and sale around December? Other things that they could be doing and drawing from not just Lincoln and Placer County, but across the region and across the country as they do. So we think because of the ability to expand on the festival work, that's why it gets 3 sets of footprints for foot traffic. It could actually draw in those things. And it has some earned revenue potential greater than the history lane, and its contributed needs would be 1.5 hands of, and we'll get to actual numbers. Then we thought about the other things you could do with clay art. Certainly demand for a place to learn and teach. So for artists, they can teach and have a little, another side hustle or whatever that will be for them. For community members, young and old alike, it's a place to literally get your hands in it. Whether you're making pinch pots for the first time or trying some new kind of firing and glazing technique because you're a little bit more advanced. But having all of those steps of teaching and learning, certainly there's an earned revenue potential there that can work well for us. So you need some contributed support for capital things, but maybe not for day-to-day operations in that modality. And it does, if the classes fill, and we believe that they will, it does drive foot traffic. Not hundreds and hundreds at once, but little dribs and drabs. Whether it's parents and tots in the mornings or after school times or weekend classes, it will bring people, a dozen at a time to that building all the time. And then, of course, we call it the clay scene and studios, a place for more established clay artists to have a membership and come and work together in sort of a shared studio environment. Get out of the garage, spare bedroom place and get with others and have a place to actually work, which we think would be neat. There's some earned revenue potential there in terms of selling that membership. It's not a very expensive endeavor, so they are also become the pool of donors, and that can extend. The foot traffic, depending, and again, that's sort of a trickle, but it's steady. It's steady. There's daily work to be done in those spaces. So as you can see from what I've boxed around there, when we kind of went through this with the committee, it was really pretty clear that between what the building is and how it works, and what we're trying to accomplish, that really leaning into being a clay art center as opposed to a clay art and history center was the preferred way to go. So that's what we ran forward with. Here's the recommendations. Classes, lots and lots of classes, as many as we can get. We call them memberships, so think of a gym membership, but it's for clay making. You get a membership and you have access to wheels and kilns and stuff, and lots of clay and all of those things. And then some facility rental. As you'll see in a second, rentals are not going to be great for this building. You also have rentable space across the street. That in the Veterans Building and the Women's Club. I'm sure I'm not saying that quite right, but all over there, and the theater. So you have rental space already, so we don't think you need more right there on that corner, but there's a little bit of activity that might happen there for rentals. There's the class load. We kind of detailed that out there, pretty important. We think there's always interest in ceramics classes. Ask anyone who runs an art center and they'll tell you that's usually the #1 draw. So having a center that is dedicated to clay, we think makes sense here. If you haven't been in the building, here's what it's looking like. The top right is actually sort of a 3D image. We're not able to actually look through a wall, but that's what it looks like upstairs. Those wonderful tall windows, the doorway and the entry. The other picture kind of just below that was us touring it, but again, you see all those great windows and high ceiling, all of that great space. The picture on the left is the basement level, the downstairs, which is divided up. That's where the bathroom is. There's a storage, kind of long, skinny storage closet there, which will be useful. It's a much lower ceiling and not as much natural light, but still good usable space for certain things. So that's what we're working with in terms of space. Here's some images of some of your local ceramic studios, right? They're working spaces. They're messy. There's dust. you need places to clean things. There's water that gets carried around. There's special sinks with traps. They are a lot of fun, but they are not the neatest activity to have. So having really fancy carpet or flooring is not recommended for this use. But that's what it would look like if converted for this purpose. Here's the layouts that we have done and kind of just modeling the concept. And I think I should, Kevin Donnelly would want me to emphasize here, this is not design work. This is sort of conceptual plan sketching about what the concept could be. But we did need to do a little drawing, and he thinks with a pen in his hand. So this is what we got. On the main floor, you'll see that's really mostly going to be used for the kind of open studio. So artists who want to come in and work, that's their place. Big windows with lots of natural light, perfect for art studio. Artists will love to work in that environment. We think as you walk up the stairs and kind of turn left, kind of a hard left there's an area to have some display things. So you could have a few Gladding McBean things. You could have some work that the artists have been working on, maybe trying to sell in that corner, kind of a place to receive the public so they can see what's going on there. And then on in through the studio, tables, those little circle things are wheels. That was the first image I showed you. Those are clay wheels. We think we can get about 5 of them in there. They don't need a ton of special power, so that's okay. We think it can work. There's a mop sink on the far right, bottom right corner of the sketch there. It's just a mop sink. You need that for cleaning all the stuff. I think Jim could tell you about this. There's a special sort of clay trap that you need under there so the clay doesn't drain into your pipes and you can reuse the clay. There's a couple specialty things, not crazily expensive. The other lower floor plan, we think that's the better space for really focusing on classes there, particularly at beginner levels. It's not as great a space because the ceiling is lower, but still very, very workable to get some classes going down there. So again, 3 wheels, some tables. Maybe you can add some more wheels if you can. Maybe you can configure tables differently, but that's all just furniture and fixture stuff. That's where the restroom is. We would preserve the storage closet because yes, of course, we'll need some storage for clay and equipment and other things. Another cleanup sink down there. When not in use for classes, the members, the others who want to come in and work could also use that space too. We do think to really be a attractive clay art center, there will need to be some kilns, probably at least 2 kilns. In this plan, we're thinking that those could be located outside, probably in something that we've called a kiln shed. This may be located along the park. That will need some special power that goes to it. You could put them inside, but then you start reducing the amount of students you can have in your classes. So that's why we stuck them outside. You get some better, a little more revenue and more people served. I did want to take just a second to talk about when we really pulled back and started thinking about the pride you have in the history of Lincoln, and all the assets you have clustered together right outside here. You have the Art League, you have Gladding, you have City Hall, you have the Archives Museum, you'll have the Clay Art Center, the Civic Auditorium, all of these things, and plus some cool old buildings in your open plaza spaces. You have a really neat emerging district here in which you could use the entire district to tell the story of Lincoln's history, your natural history, your industrial history, all that could be done as more of you already have some walking tours, but how could you expand on that and work with Gladding to get some of their artifacts out of their factory and out into this district would be something of interest and possibly useful and sort of fits everything together. Not only do you have this great output of clay with what Gladding does, you have a place where you can learn how it starts. We think that could all happen in a district here. A lot of assets to build with. We were talking all about activation. That's a key success indicator. Here's some numbers about activation. We think these I think are pretty conservative, about 2,400 visits by those who are coming to use studio space. Almost another 2,400 attending classes. That doesn't count the person dropping off the person taking the class. So you probably have some more people there. and then some other master classes, events, and workshops and walk-ins. We have not counted things like Feats of Clay, because you probably already know the foot traffic for that, so all of this is additive to that. We think that's a nice activity level coming into downtown. Okay, how's it going to operate? When fully developed and running, we think it looks something like this: about a 60% earned revenue to 40% contributed revenue. Your earned sources come from the memberships, the classes and workshops, and a few rentals, just renting the building for a party, an event, something like that. The classes and workshops and the memberships, we really just set those prices based on comparables in the market. So you could take a beginner ceramic class for $200 or $300. You could be a member for $100 or $150 a month and have access to the equipment and the space. You'd need about $200,000 a year to close your operating gap when you are fully up and running. In my world, that's pretty good. As it goes, and we believe that the support would be there. On the expense side, where does the money go? We do have some expenses with offering the classes. That's reflected there. The major expense, of course, is the staff to pull this off. 3.5 FTE when you are fully up and running. There's a funny thing that happens once you become an entity, and an entity that needs to raise money, you then need staff to help you raise money and market and promote. So those things all go together and in fact sort of drive some of the fundraising need. It's just one of those things. And we've made some per square foot estimates about utilities, maintenance, insurance, all that occupancy cost stuff to kind of bake that in here. So what you're looking at is an overall operating budget somewhere south of $500,000 with a $200,000 a year fundraising need as it goes, with some strong earned revenue potentials. This is the same numbers all in one chart, and how we've kind of imagined how it could step up from initial opening up to year 3, which would kind of be the first normalized year of operations. And you can see how that has worked. Really, it's about the personnel. You don't need all the staff right away, but you do need 1.5 to begin with, to kind of be organizing the members and organizing the classes, and then all of that starts to flow. And if it goes well, yeah, we'll work our way up to $450,000 a year budget and 60% earned revenue.
Could you do me a favor and go back 2 slides to the first revenue?
Yes. And I'll put it back in slideshow mode so it's nice and big. If I can get the mouse to cooperate with me. There, sorry.
Okay. Just a quick question. Okay, so what you said was 285,000 you project coming from membership, class, workshop rentals, and then the other 200,000 would have to come from contribution grants, sponsorships, basically fundraising. Okay. Thank you. I just want to be clear about what you said there. Okay. All right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Some final comments.
Sure.
What's before you tonight really is just phase 1. So what you would be committing to if you approve the action before you is just the funding to get the building so it's usable. It's not to set up the Clay Arts Center.
Right.
We understand as a nonprofit that we have to raise the money to build it out as a Clay Arts Center, and we have to prove to the city that we are able to sustain it. So that's yet to come.
Gotcha.
So we're just doing phase 1 now. We have several phases envisioned for this project, including creating an outdoor art park and event center in Scout Hall Park. But there's a lot more yet to be done. But this at least gets us to the point where the building can be used by the community. And we're actually hoping to be able to use the building to help us fundraise for the capital improvements needed to build out the Clay Arts Center.
Okay, great.
So just so you're clear.
Right. No, I'm clear. Thank you. I appreciate that. But since you went through the whole thing, can I ask a couple questions about if we get to the next phase? Is it okay if I ask a quick question about that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would it be the nonprofit hiring staff, or would it be city staff?
This model assumes it's the nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah, you are the building owner,
And then you're
but that's
just-
really it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then the nonprofit will be running the classes, managing the building, and that sort of thing. Okay. The other thing about the rentals, I actually think that this would be a very cool place to rent for an event, but I'm not sure, and I get your point about rentals as the smaller piece of that because there's other places to rent, although people are always looking for places to have events. The problem I see with that is that you have all the tables and the clay pot, like you'd have to move all that. So how do you envision that?
Right. I mean, we envision some of the rentals being from the sort of clay arts community themselves.
Okay,
So for example, what we assumed in this model, if Feats of Clay remains as a separate entity, they would rent the building for
Gotcha.
instance, the big event in the spring.
gotcha.
So the tables do have to go somewhere, but for their use, they have a lot of clay artists coming around who want to take master classes and hear from other ceramicists about their work. So it's a little easier. So it's in that way, it's not a huge market of prospective renters. I mean, unless somebody wants to do a really funky fundraising dinner in that space, it would be difficult. So we haven't leaned too hard on that. Though in the interim, some rental use might be possible as David's team starts to make the building occupiable. That would be something to do, which is happening in Auburn at the Auburn Carnegie Building, by the way. They're kind of renting it out for events and other things.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd actually like to be able to use it for fundraising events as well. So the main level, which is the most marketable for that purpose,
Right.
we're going to make it so it's all the equipment is portable and movable. So
Okay,
we can
that,
move everything either to the side or out.
okay,
so
that was.
somebody could utilize the entire space.
Okay, because that's kind of what I was thinking when, before you actually finished what you're saying, I was writing notes. I'm like, if you're doing the clay classes downstairs, that's perfect. Then you can run out the upper, but you still need the space. But if you move them, you could have a really nice venue.
Notice there was no partition walls or any
Yeah,
permanent walls.
okay.
So it's going to be an open space.
Okay, that's good.
like that.
Okay.
The other thing I want to point out too is that most of the cost in phase one is really ADA accessibility
Right,
issues.
right. Well, and that's what
Most of
we're
what we're spending our money on.
spending, authorizing this money that we set aside for this. Well, and I love your plan and I appreciate all the work went into it. This is something that we've been talking about for a long time, especially our previous council, myself and former Mayor Joyner, very concerned about this building and other people and community people always ask, what are we going to do? We've had people say, well, we should sell it. And we were absolutely not, we're not going to sell our Carnegie, right? Well, let's turn it into nail salons or that sort of thing. We're not going to do that either. So really appreciate the work that the Economic Development Committee's been doing. My only piece in this really is, other than I was on the Economic Development before John and Whitney took over, was helping to secure Jessup for that funding piece, which was, that was great. But really appreciate all your work because this is just like we talk about, the airport being a gem and other things we have that are assets. The Carnegie is really special. And I know it's been breaking your heart to see it close all these years, and we're excited. I'm excited about being able to have the funds to get it to where it is usable, regardless of what it ends up becoming. But I like this idea. I just had one other financial question, and I'm sorry, I don't mean this to be like a intrusive question, but did the nonprofit pay for the consultant services, or did that come out of what we've got set aside?
City Council provided the funding for the consultant study
Okay, that we did.
That was
Okay, yeah, thank you.
earlier in the year.
Sometimes I forget, like, we have so many things, and that's totally fine with me. I was just
I
curious.
think it was
as
the
you were
same
talking.
source of money as this one.
Yeah, same source of money that's right, we did. Okay. You guys have questions?
By the way, there wasn't enough to cover everything, so we did raise some funds
Yeah.
in addition to the money.
Yeah,
the
not that I
city-
would expect you to. I just couldn't remember what we did before. It's been a few months.
It actually
so.
costs more than what the city did.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. Yeah,
Opportunity.
yes, but thank you, though. That was really great.
One of the things that I really feel brings vibrance to a city or community are the arts in general, whether it be clay arts, any type of where there's music or culinary arts or something that engages and enhances the quality of life. And so I love that we're putting this together, seeing where we can help.
No, I just want to, thanks for the presentation. I'm fully supportive of getting the work done, and David's all-star team. I don't even sure your whole team will fit in the building.
I
The
know,
list was
right?
amazing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the next phases
By the
once
way,
we get this
John
done.
did the scans, by the way, that you saw
Oh,
on
that's
the.
right.
Oh.
Those are great. Yeah,
So-
those are very helpful.
You contributed as well.
Looking forward to seeing the next step.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just saying, I'm a cautious optimist.
Yeah.
And so worst case is we get the building to where it can be used no matter what. And we wanted, because it fills so many needs and fills the gap here, that's really going to add a tremendous amount of vibrancy to our downtown area.
Good. Okay, I would like to open this up for a public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to make a comment on this? Anybody online? Nope. Okay, all right. So, yeah, I think we're all in agreement that we at least want to move forward and get the money out so that we don't run up against our deadline and get the work started. So if you guys are ready, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Reedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pearl.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Mayor Andriata.
Yes. Thank you both very much. We really appreciate all your hard work on that. Okay, item 90, establishment of Lincoln Staff Leadership Training Program, discussion and direction. Mr. Scully, back to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm going to make this brief because we've been here a while. But I'm really excited about this. I was sharing with some of you during prep that it's relatively rare. It's very rare that I get to work on a project that I can own most of, just me, just because of the nature of this job. But one of the things, without divulging any closed session discussions, that came out of my employee evaluation from the council was that succession and leadership training for the next class of leaders that are going to take over sooner than we think internally is really important, and it's a huge blind spot for me here. We have spent so much time filling seats over the last couple of years and getting the right people into the right positions that we haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about how we develop the next class of leaders. And because Holly is the only person left on the city council that hired me, and when I initially came, and one of the things we discussed when I first was hired, and I promised, and I haven't kept that promise yet, but I'm going to, is that by the time I'm done, you're going to have plenty of people internally that you could choose from to take over. And so the question, after we had that discussion, I started to think about what could we do, and there's a lot of different options and individual things you can do. But what I found was that we needed something that was unique to Lincoln, because Lincoln as an organization compared to other jurisdictions is just a unique place for a variety of reasons. So I engaged with a consultant that you all know, Greg Greason, who has done quite a bit of work to help us focus our efforts here at the city. And we kind of started a long research project called lots of different organizations and municipalities in the state, and even looked into some in some other states that had developed programs that either management academies or leadership programs. There's a variety of different names for similar kinds of things. In addition, there's a number of retired city managers that have written extensively on this topic and what the value could be. So we took all of that. A lot of phone calls were made to talk to organizations that have programs that have been in place for many, many years now, and what kind of information they were able to share. And so we sort of focused our efforts on addressing kind of three key questions. A, what are we trying to achieve here? I think we've kind of talked about that in my opening statement. Two, who participates? Like who is it open to? And three, what is the what's the curriculum? What are you teaching as part of this process? So the second question, which is who participates, was a really important one because it kind of defines how we were going to create the program. Some places have leadership programs that are run by the city that really just apply to like management staff and above. And as we did more research on that, because that was the original direction we were going, what we found was that many of them regretted that after the first year because it didn't make for an inclusive program that everybody from your folks that work the front counter all the way up to, Nita could participate in. And one of the things you hear a lot from staff that want to promote, especially into a job where you're supervising others, is how am I supposed to get this supervisor's experience if I can't actually supervise people? It's like chicken and the egg, right? So pretty quickly we realized that this needed to be available to all staff that work for the city of Lincoln, regardless of your position title and regardless of your department. So I'm talking police, fire, Public Works, every department that's represented in this room, et cetera. What I would tell you though, just so we're clear, the name that's on the staff report is a placeholder name for the time being. Obviously, there's a Leadership Lincoln program that exists that's a community/city/chamber driven effort. And that's really designed to give community members, although we do have staff participating in it periodically as well, a more broad view of Lincoln and all of the business and commerce and governmental and education activities that happen here. This is not that. We're not intending to replace that. We expect that will continue on. It's a pretty vibrant program. It seems like they get a new pretty large class every single semester. This is more designed as a technical and management training session for staff people. So you may have staff that want to lateral away from the department they're in. For example, you may have a police officer that likes being a police officer, but boy, I'd really like to go work in finance. Or in fact, oddly, we have a finance person for finance right now that is moving over into the police department. So it's designed to give people a broader view of everything that we do here and create pathways for them to move around more if that's what they're interested in. Separately, and as importantly, it's designed to give a leveling up of each of those individuals in the class the opportunity to learn more and really think about what that next step is for them, what they need to learn as part of this program to get there, and what the pathway is. What we learned from almost every jurisdiction that we spoke to about this was, is the juice worth the squeeze? Because we've got a lot to do, and there's plenty of other things we could be spending our time on. What we heard from almost every single one was it was the absolute best decision they ever made. They now have essentially an academy, more or less, that not only instills the culture and values of our organization, which is the key part of this, but also gives them tools to move up to that next level that's beyond just their job training. So that's the broad component of it. I'm not going to go through the total report with you. What you'll see I did put in here, it's conceived as a small cohort, so there'll be some kind of letter of intent or application process where we can get a good diverse group of people involved. I don't think we're going to be doing much more than maybe 15 at the very most, but probably in the 10 to 12 range. We want it to be small groups so they're getting a lot of value out of it. This won't be, hey, you show up on a work day and this is your duties for the day. This is an intensive. It's going to require reading. It's going to require some actual outside of the workplace thought, projects. It won't be you show up for 12 sessions and you get a little certificate. That's not the intent here. When you look at the staff report, what I did just to give you a flavor of what we're thinking is I put the first two sessions I wrote in detail what the curriculum generally is going to be for those days. The remaining you'll notice are absent. They're not absent in reality, but what's funny is I found as I was writing this report is I had become a little bit protective of the curriculum, and I wasn't sure that until we're ready to go live with it, we wanted it out there for everybody to take a look at. But what I can share with you is day one is sort of your introduction. We'll be doing some LIFO tools. We will be talking about our culture, our core values, what it means to be a public servant in Lincoln, that, one of the things that's super important to me is that we try to be a culture of kindness, and in particular, kindness to our community, and trying to instill what types of things make Lincoln unique in our organizational culture. Two is kind of where we get into the nuts and bolts. So day 2 ends up being your local government 101. So some staff here have a really good handle on that. Other staff work in a very siloed environment where they just do 1 or 2 job duties. And so they don't spend a lot of time understanding why IT does something the way it does, or what the most dangerous call for a police officer is to go on, or how many, what a day looks like for a firefighter on a really busy day where you have a lot of serious incidents. And so it's sort of broadening everybody's horizon, putting everybody on the same page for that day. Session 3 is understanding and overcoming the 5 dysfunctions of a team. That's a 2-day series where we'll be talking about how do you build and create and maintain and improve a team, and what are the potholes that exist when you're doing that. Session 5 is preparation, anticipation, and pivoting as a leader. So one of the things that, at least in my job, is you have to be willing. You can't get so focused on what you as a person think is the right thing to do, because there's dozens or hundreds and thousands of different opinions, and any one of them can become the dominant one at any time. And so you have to be ready to move that direction if it's possible. It's really hard to do. It takes a lot of practice. Sessions 6 and 7 are leadership and local government. So we're going to be bringing in area executives that working on a couple of local city managers that have agreed to come in and teach portions of the sessions. We will, I hope we will be having each and every single one of the city council come in at various periods of time and teach on specific sections that may be more relevant to your areas of interest in your service here on the city council. We have a long list of folks. Christine, of course, we're going to hope to come in and explain what leadership means from her perspective as our person that defends and makes sure that we're following all the applicable laws. It's going to be as collaborative as we can make it. Session 9 is nuts and bolts approach. So how a city works. This gets technical. So we're going to be talking about detail and, everything from performance evaluations down to how, why we do audits and what are some of the details there. Enough so that you could speak the language even if you're not fluent in it. Lessons in leadership. This will be kind of additional speakers that kind of can share their experiences in their place, hopefully giving everybody a better approach. And then a couple more of similar, more nuts and bolts and an ending in lessons in leadership. We are going to have some, it's not going to be all just book learning and talking. It's intended to be interactive. So the idea would be, we hope, to have actually some type of project, not a community service project like Lincoln Leadership, but some type of project that is running concurrent to a city initiative that can be used as an outcome from these groups. The other thing I'll just mention, and then I'd love to take questions, is that there's some common themes we want to run throughout the totality of the program. One is our culture and how we define and develop that over time, because it does change. One is, and the other one is long-term thinking. So one of the things the council's talked a lot about in the recent year, at least, is that sometimes we make decisions because they're decisions that need to be made now, and that's normal. But sometimes we don't think about that decision and how it's going to affect us in 20 and 25 years and 30 years. For every discussion that we have about the general plan, which is a very long-term document, we have 500 more that are about the next week or the next month or the next year. And so we're going to try to instill this concept of if you can, almost every decision you make has to be thought of a little bit further out. What's the downstream effects of that? So I could go on and on, but I'm not going to. I don't see, so we're going to bring a budget amendment as part of the quarterly update that may allocate a small additional amount for what we think we need in terms of materials and support for the program, but it will be non-substantive to our total budget, probably even within my authority outside of budget. But the reason, what the real cost, it will be that the 10 or 12 individuals that are part of the program will be out of pocket for one day a month for an entire year. And every department, it's one of the things the council asked me when I was hired was, they asked me whether, when I was in my previous city during the recession, if we ever cut training. It was an interesting question because I knew what they were trying to trick me on. And the answer to that question, and it's true, is that we would have likely laid people off before we cut training. The reason, and that sounds harsh, and I get it, but we can't do what we do without staying up on the latest and greatest. And so similarly, I feel that we really can't hope to be a better organization tomorrow if we're going to survive on external recruitments and hoping that we can attract talent versus developing our own. So the primary cost is just the value of time, I suppose. But if you think about it as an investment, it probably pays off over time, or at least I hope it does. The reason why I brought this to City Council is I don't think this works just because I tell the staff, hey, I think this is a great program, you should consider participating in. I think it only works if it's a council blessed and driven effort that says this is who we want to be, this is where we want to go. And so that's why I agendized it. I don't know that I need necessarily a ringing endorsement, but if you at least give a thumbs up, that helps us get rolling. And I hope, I hope to be able to, if we can get something spun up and ready to go in the fourth quarter of this year, we will. Otherwise, it'll probably be first of the new year, and we'll start fresh, and we'll commit to reporting back to you to see how it goes. So that's my report.
Questions?
Yeah, I actually, there's a lot of people are concerned about the growth of the city from a perspective of we're getting too big, we're too fast, and a lot of different things like that. And one of the things that I believe that most people really like about Lincoln is the culture that we have. It's the small town feel. It's we know our neighbors and things like that. So, and we can call it the Lincoln way, if you will. And so I strongly support investing in the leadership development and cross-training so that the Lincoln way shows up in every interaction of a residence with our residents. Cross-training can break down silos, if you will, and protect the continuity of people that are out or positions turnover. I also believe it shortens the response times. It improves the collaboration across departments. It also could save us money in the long run too, because it helps in retention of people that are staffing. Strengthens and succession planning while boosting morale as well. Most importantly, it's our culture and how we greet, solve problems, follow through, remains consistent at every count or every call, or even in the field. And so I'm in favor of a phased rollout that maps the critical functions, pairs for teams or the one day that you're out, because it helps us to accomplish that kind of thing. So
I just have one question. I'm very supportive of this. I think this is wonderful. Very excited about it. I'm just curious though, do you anticipate this competing or hurting staff's ability to participate in Leadership Lincoln? Because I know we always have, and they can always do it opposite years or whatever. Will you still allow them to do that?
Yeah, of course. It's funny. I gave an hour-and-a-half presentation to Leadership Lincoln Monday, I think. There was at least three staff that are part of that program currently. And it could work one of two ways. This is designed, I think, what I would say is that don't participate in this program unless you're really serious about it. If you need to start with an exposure to Lincoln, like let's say there's a couple of people that are in Leadership Lincoln currently that are new staff members, have been here for less than a year. Totally appropriate and a perfect program for them to get to know the community, make the connections with all of the people that participate in that are not necessarily staff members. They should do that. This, I think, is for those people that are interested in leveling up their careers. And so I think it's additive, actually. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I gave it 2 thumbs up because leadership is very difficult. And you don't realize how difficult it is until you're put in a position that you have to take a decision You have to take a position that may not sit well with people. And you have to understand why things happen, how they're happening. And the only way to do that is to gain experience. It seems to me that this is going to allow people to understand that life and business, the business of government is very complicated. And sometimes you're going to succeed and sometimes you're going to fail. And this, I think, will give our staff the comfort level to understand why our department heads are doing what they're doing, and also bringing in experts and practitioners from outside to give their benefits of their experience, because it's part of training, and it's not going to be for everyone. I mean, there are numbers of people who are very satisfied to do what they do. It's a trade. All life is a trade-off. And some people want to trade off. I don't want to move up the corporate ladder. I just want to do my job. I want to do it well. I want to be respected for what I'm doing. But I don't want to get involved in management. And that's fine. That's absolutely perfect. There are other people who want to climb the corporate ladder. And this, to me, will give them the background and the experience to understand what it takes to be a leader, because it really is difficult. And I think everyone here, has gone through that process, but it sure would have been nicer to have that experience, before you turn loose, and so you're not going to necessarily make the same mistakes that you would have made before. So I think it's just a fabulous program.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo the same. I think it's a great opportunity. What I particularly like about it, and the part that I'm drawn the most to, I think the leadership part is important, the opportunity to be exposed, understanding why Sean, our department heads, make their decision, why the five of us may or may not make the decisions that we sometimes make. I think that's important. But the big takeaway from me is the thread that you talked about. And it's sort of instilling and knitting that thread into the culture of the city staff from top to bottom in a way that becomes impervious to a single individual's whim, or it reduces the likelihood of making some of the mistakes that the city has made in the past, because the culture of how you make decisions and why you make them and the thought process and the longevity of them is baked in top to bottom. And I think that will serve the city long after all of us are gone.
Okay, well, I think you have consensus that we're all very supportive.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
you're welcome.
Coming to you soon.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have any city manager reports, or are you all talked out?
I'm pretty talked out, but I can, look, I'm gonna channel my inner Matt Medill, and I got a couple things here. No, I'm just kidding.
We love Matt.
Senior health fair, last time I'll say this, at least for a year, this Thursday at 10 o'clock, McBean Park, huge, much bigger event. It's not my place to say this, but I might suggest to the electeds that at some point we may want to honor the two ladies who, I do a little bit of the help, but they've done all of this. And that's Harriet Garland, Chris Wyatt, for those who don't know. So please come down, check it out. And then the only other thing is Mayor's Golf Cup Tournament, raising money for our recreation program Friday.
Yeah, my husband can't play golf yet because he's still recuperating from surgery, and I had a couple offers to play, but I think we're just gonna ride the golf cart around and bring people beer and whatever they need and just make sure everybody's having fun. So it should be a great day. Hope you're gonna come out and either play or say hi or whatever. And all the money goes to our Park and Rec for scholarships for families that can't really afford to sign their kids up for programs. And I'm really excited about this because I think we said we stopped doing this like right at COVID and whatever. And we've been wanting to bring it back. And so this year we are. And so and we're going to keep it going. So I'm excited. So I appreciate staff and Doug Brown's work on all this.
It just reminded me, Mayor, also, we should start plugging it now. We're going to do the 100-year anniversary of McBean Pool. And I think it's going to be on Halloween.
Oh, perfect.
And we do a floating pumpkin patch in the pool. And so we're going to kind of team that with the 100-year anniversary. We're going to have a party and some food, and it's free for the community. So keep an eye out for that too.
Great, thank you. Okay, any council initiated business? Any committee reports? No, go ahead. John.
Since these guys are just diffling over there, I'll jump in. Okay, we did not have an airport committee meeting this month because we've got a whole bunch of things that'll be rolling out next month, so that'll be an action-packed meeting. I am on Pioneer Community Energy. We now have 11 members. We're onboarding 13 more communities, cities and counties, and they, just another 4 small communities want to join us also. And so the biggest discussion point that we had at last week's meeting was how are we going to manage our board of directors when everyone has a seat at the table? So we've gone from 11 to 25. We're going to have close to
You're
31.
gonna have to get a new boardroom
We're
because
gonna have to
you can't fit any more
move to a new
there.
place. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah. So it's gonna be, it's interesting, but I get my point here is that the organization is really growing and it's doing some really good things. And, to me, it's a no-brainer for people to join Pioneer because you're doing absolutely nothing. You get a nice discount on your electric bill. So that's gonna be good. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
So our city EDC, WAPMA met, the landfill, a few sort of yellow lights on there. We kind of had to talk about FCC, who's our operator. They have not been delivering the diversion rates that their contract calls for. They've hired a new regional GM who's actually a Lincoln resident and actually a neighbor of mine, turns out, to kind of clean shop. And we have a lot of confidence that he will do that, but we're, keeping a close eye on that. Had LISWA and then also attended the Placer County Economic Development Board up in North Lake Tahoe, and we got some good updates from some programs up there. And one of the things that they're going to try to do, or hopefully that we'll do, is actually move that meeting to other parts of Placer County and get some more daylighting of other programs in other parts of some of those programs are very unique to North Lake Tahoe, and some programs that are familiar or useful for South and Middle Placer.
Right, yeah, we had LaSalle last Friday and it's the wastewater treatment plant, JPA, and we are working through just ideas and plans for management and that sort of thing. So I'm not gonna say a lot, but John and I are pushing some things through, so it'll be good all the way around when we get to it. Okay, I don't have any other committee reports. We did a SACOG meeting at Bishop's Pumpkin Farm last week. The meetings are usually in Sacramento at the SACOG building, but they've been trying to go around the different places. And so a couple months ago it was in Rockland, and then this last week was at Bishop's, and at a meeting in the barn. It was kind of cool. It was fun. And the highlight was they gave us a caramel apple when we left. So, and Wheatland did a presentation. It was really kind of cool to hear some history about Wheatland, and they just annexed 4,000 acres for growth. And so they're going to be, Wheatland will be expanding. So that was interesting, but nothing really pertinent to, what for us right at the moment. For information items, I did also want to remind everybody, and we'll say it again next time, is please mark your calendar for October 30th. We are going to be doing the State of the City, and we're going to do 9 a.m. like a breakfast and things out front of the Civic Auditorium in the foyer and out front. I'm working hopefully to get the high school bands and cheerleaders out there to perform. And then the program will start at 10 inside the Civic Auditorium. So please mark your calendar, make sure you come out and hear all the great things that are happening, that's happened this last year. And hopefully we'll get our other elected colleagues from around the county to come and join us. And it's going to be a good morning. So October 30th. That's all the information I have right now. Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got the 3rd annual Great Auburn Ravine and City Parks and Alleyways Cleanup Day is this Saturday.
Oh, yeah, that's my calendar.
So,
thank you for that.
yeah, from 9 until noon. And I get to be a group leader for one of the
Awesome.
areas. So our city clean and promoting civic, or not civic, but community involvement to do that, so that they have a little bit of skin in the game to keep our communities nice.
Good. All right. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.